Warhammer x LOTM, The Black Emperor by author Jiao Chao Emo. Chapter 1101-1118. Welcome to Fanfic Audiobook, your go-to place for immersive audiobooks. If you enjoy the content, don't forget to like the video and subscribe to our channel for more amazing stories. And those who want to support me, I have a Patreon channel, get early access to video on Patreon. Chapter 1101 My Blood Raven, retrieve for me all things of value. In the fourth level of the Nation of Disorder, Nimrod leans against the throne, overlooking Wilshire before him. My lord, Greya has signed the covenant, agreeing to relinquish its resource allocation in the Nidalina subsector in exchange for your grace to establish a new Forge world in Ghoul Stars. The Greya crown has taken off and is heading to the Eastern Galaxy. Nimrod nodded slightly. He needed the Greya crown to counter the predatory Forge world. While the Romulus-class star fort possesses similar firepower and can serve as a strategic node, its mobility is vastly inferior. He brought Greya to Ghoul Stars partly to accelerate development in the remote frontier region, and partly in the hope that the Morning Star Titan Legion could assume the responsibility of defending a region in the future. The alien threat within Ghoul Stars is far greater than in the heart of the Empire. He brought Valia Maximal into the future Roziki sector for the same reason. Each Forge world signifies a notarized, iron agreement, bearing the unique mark of Fabricator General. Nimrod nodded slightly, and with a wave of his hand, black mist engulfed the agreements one by one. Well done. He smiled, having achieved another strategic goal during the great birthday celebration. The steel ring is unified under his will. Although some Forge worlds, such as Tower Median, are actually loyal to the Empire, this is enough for Nimrod. Now that you're on his chariot, don't even think about getting off. Nimrod will bind them to its own interests. Wilshire clasped his hands together, saying, "All glory belongs to you." He maintained the pious gesture and continued his report. In the second chapter, 1,490 people were killed and 520 Guardianal 2 tripod walking mechs were destroyed in the war in Steel Ring. The new walking mech experiments were basically successful. The force field adjustment was very effective in countering titans that preferred a certain type of weapon. However, they also exposed some problems. In addition to being unable to deal with the tactically flexible titans, the force field's defense also had its limits. 360 Guardianal IVs were destroyed. All of the above losses were in connection with various Forge World projects. Titan and Skeetalii were lost in battle. Nimrod nodded slightly. Second chapter was able to conquer Steel Ring at a relatively low cost, mainly because of Guardianal's three-legged walking mechs. Rest in place. Follow your will. Wilshire respectfully complied, and was immediately swallowed up by the black mist. Nimrod then raised his hand, and one contract after another appeared in the palm of his left powerful fist. He then waved his right hand, signing his name and stamping it in the blank spaces one by one. With a flick of his wrist, the contract documents fell into several boxes. Nimrod took a step and returned to the real world. He summoned a mystery prior, librarian and a reader, servant, gave them the box, and instructed them to make copies of the records. Nimrod strode into Primarch's office. With a thought, Jokero in the first level of space began to concoct the Marauder potion using the hands of Lexran Ratman. He looked at the doorway and said, "Come in." Librarian, former chief of Thousand Sons, Hather Matt, accompanied by Menes Calliston, the platoon leader of the Fourth Fellowship, and Menkara, the temple master of the Corvidae cult, entered the palace. "My lord," the three bowed and called out. They were all fortunate enough to hear the truth in the cathedral and become followers of the Black Emperor. Magister Templi of Pyre cult, Caliphus had not yet received enlightenment. The Earl of the Fallen leans against the throne, and the two have been corroded by him. Nimrod analyzed that the reasons for the two men's differences were different. Menes saw him as a symbol of geometry. Menkara's subconscious was altered by Dreamwalker, Hather over a long period, and her divination results were repeatedly interfered with by Burial. Drink them. As Nimrod spoke, 2 bottles of great potion appeared between his palms. Menes picked up the potion, which resembled a severed finger, faintly revealing patterns. Slender fingers, bright eyes. Menkara picked up the potion, habitually ascending into the second level of Magnus's state of mind, avoiding the cold black hole behind him, and peering at the potion in his hand. A hand could be vaguely seen reaching out from within a wisp of black mist. Open black lens bracket. Is this divination result credible? Close black lens bracket. Menkara looked at the Black Emperor with awe. The true god is unfathomable. The divination results involved are inaccurate. Hather glanced at the potions in the two men's hands. They were completely different from the ones he had been given. This is the source of my power. You are fortunate to receive the crystallized power bestowed by the true God today, and you will gain miraculous power. Menes and Menkara bowed in gratitude, saying, "Thank you, Lord, for this." They then tilted their heads back and drank the medicine. Hathor, you should also prepare yourself. In order to bear the power I have given you, you must complete the ritual. Drink the potion I have given you in a specific setting where at least 10,000 people are present, when their emotions resonate deeply. Visionary, Pathway Sequence 4, the Manipulator Promotion Ceremony, is the same as in his memory. Its essence is to awaken the consciousness of the promoted person through strong emotional resonance, preventing self-awareness from being assimilated by the sea of the collective unconscious. The requirements of the ritual are not difficult for dreamwalkers, especially those in high positions, to complete. What restricts the cultivation of manipulators is the potion materials. Nimrod can only train one antideal from the main material. There is only one antideal. The other corpse was too mangled to be used as an ingredient for a potion. He has obtained the location of his home world from a Sisiltir's mind, but has not yet been able to extricate himself from it. He chose Hathor because of his significant contributions. He presented the Book of Magnus and a major fragment of Magnus, thus establishing his Gloriana-class battleship. Fodep has won over 13,400,000 sons, and Alexandria IV's 1,000 sons needs his influence. When you are ready, I will give you the potion. Hathor's eyes shone brightly. I will follow your will. Menes and Menkara knelt on one knee. My lord, we will certainly make good use of the power you have given us. Get up. After Menkara stood up, he looked at the Black Emperor with a puzzled expression. My lord, what do we want to steal? Nimrod smiled and said, I prefer to call you collectors, mystery gatherers. Your mission is to collect knowledge and exotic items. Quote, my blood raven, retrieve for me everything of value. As he spoke, a piece of parchment floated up from the table. With a thought, the paper twisted and intertwined, outlining a black raven with dark red blood droplets on its body. The 3,000 sons looked at each other. Hathor read their thoughts in the eyes of the 2,000 sons. The Black Emperor disliked ordinary things, he preferred unusual objects and the mysteries of knowledge. The 3,000 sons bowed and replied, we will obey your will. Hathor and his two companions emerged from the great door and saw Corielzeth, dressed in armor and resembling a warrior rather than an archmagos, accompanied by Sage. Apprentice Conter Poke awaits. They had a brief interaction, exchanging nods and greetings. Coral, Kant, come in. Greater than. Chapter 1102 I invite all of you to join my war council. Corielzeth was encased in bronze armor that accentuated his curves, carrying Apprentice. Sage Conter Poke entered Primarch's palace. Lord Nimrod, I have completed my study of Simulacrum Sanctum and have benefited greatly from it. I think there is room for improvement. Even Astarte's superhuman brain would struggle to keep up with the level of data input and analysis at Simulacrum Sanctum. Please remember to find good books from Taiwan on the Taiwan Novel Network, can.com. It's a super convenient website with the fastest chapter updates. Quote, her eyes, sharp as an eagle's, were fixed on Lord Nimrod's marble-like face, scrutinizing every subtle change. I have heard that the Iron Hands underwent a sanctification to meet the requirements of the Simulacrum Sanctum. What do Order Shadow and those Auxilia officials rely on? You should find the answer yourself. Nimrod said calmly. The Beyonders' mental bodies are enhanced to varying degrees. Among them, the Order Shadow, who specializes in commanding void ships, and the servants trained by Arsena Dunner mainly from the White Tower pathway. Coral frowned. She had not chosen a sacred death, to be buried in the magma city she had founded, but had come to Lord Nimrod's side to explore the mysteries mentioned by Arkan Land. After observing for a period of time, she discovered that Order Shadow showed obvious talent in different areas. It was as if Lord Nimrod encompassed all aspects, and his offspring inherited a particular aspect of him. I understand. Corey's eyes lit up. I need a detailed improvement plan, not only covering Simulacrum Sanctum, but also the communication network within Legion, Nimrod said with a smile. After all, you are ahead of the entire Empire in terms of mental space. Corey's apprentice sages are active in various Forge worlds, leading the development of thought spaces. Thank you for your trust. I will certainly live up to your expectations. Although the answers they sought were not obtained, Lord Nimrod's new mission inevitably involves close contact with the Order Shadow, providing an opportunity to explore its mysteries. Besides these two tasks, you have one more task. Nimrod's eyes flashed as he looked up at the door. Now it's time to meet your colleagues who will be working with you for the next period of time. Come in. Following Lord Nimrod's gaze, Corey and Conter looked toward the doorway and saw Astartes, wearing 4 different colors of power armor, enter the Primarch's palace. Alistair Rorschach, the company commander of the 89th Company of the Raven Guard, walked to Primarch's desk. My lord, we have survived the ashes of Istvan, and we beg you to lead us to victory. Nimrod got up and went to Alistair. You have gone through a difficult journey. Alistair brings him new, corrosion, objects, all of whom are heroes of their respective legions. Alistair understood the implied meaning in Black Emperor's words, this is my duty. Nimrod nodded, took a step forward, and came to his right. Nikon, I need your stealth skills. Nikon Sarakin never expected that Lord Nimrod would know about the unremarkable man he was. Lord Nimrod, I am willing to serve you and slay the traitor. Nimrod raised his right hand and gently patted Sharokin's shoulder, then took a step and arrived on the other side. Besides Alistair, warrior, the closest to Barbas Danchich, is also 6 meters away from him. Barabbas, I need your abilities. My lord. Barabbas glanced around at his companions, who were casting distrustful glances his way. My father betrayed the Empire, but I remain loyal to the Emperor and Terra. I will follow in your footsteps, and I will not hesitate to fight against my former brothers. I believe in you. Nimrod's eyes gleamed, his words imbued with the power of confidence. Barabbas pounded his chest hard, making a loud thud. My lord, I can't wait to get to work. You'll soon begin getting to know your partner for the next period of time. Corel Archmagos and her apprentice Conter. The Astartes then noticed the other 2 people in the room. Primarch's presence completely concealed them. Barabbas, I have heard that the fortress you built is the most formidable among the Iron Warriors. Korean Archmagos, your creative research in the field of mental space has spread throughout the galaxy. As the 2 were talking, Nimrod stepped forward and approached Cassian Vaughn, the former Legion leader of the 18th Legion, who was keeping a distance from Barabbas. Cassian, it's a pleasure to see you again at this time. A smile crept across Cassian's face as he recalled his father's experiences leading the Legion in battle under Lord Nimrod before his return. My lord, it is my honor to fight under your command once again. Nimrod finally arrived in front of Iron Hands, and silently, his enormous eyes turned and gazed at the 3. A hazy, pale blue-purple hue enveloped the 3 of them. Sapphire King, you have endured cruel mental torture. The commander of the 65th Clan Company, Ulick Brandon, spoke first. My lord, the Iron Hands will never fall. We will avenge the traitors. Please lead us. Nimrod nodded. Of course. He looked toward the other 2 Iron Fathers of the Sisyphus. Freight Samadika and Sabik Wayland, I need you to work with Coral and Barabbas on the research. He will not attack Sapphire King until he integrates Iron Hands. He didn't want to see the Iron Hands go to extremes, starting with their cooperation with Barabbas. Since Barabbas could befriend the stubborn Imperial Fists member Alexis Plax, he could also befriend the 2 of them. Fled and Sabik exchanged a glance. They were unwilling to work with the offspring of a traitor, but they could not refuse Lord Nimrod's request. More importantly, after 2 years of research, Barabbas still failed to bring out the true potential of Pharos. Initially, the Pharos was used as a light tower to make the journey across the warp faster in the surrounding area, allowing long-distance communication within a certain range, and teleporting a person from one world to another. This does not meet Nimrod's needs, he needs an Astronomicon. Sir, please allow me to ask a question, Sabik asked. Is this research crucial to the current situation? He emphasized the word, crucial. Of course. Nimrod smiled nonchalantly, glancing at Corey and Barabbas who were also looking at him. It allows me to gather the scattered and loyal warriors. They are a powerful force. Open black lens bracket. How can I be awesome if I don't gather them together? Close black lens bracket. In that case, I am willing to serve you, Fletcher said. Very good. Nimrod walked back to the table and said to everyone. I invite all of you to join my war council. I need your advice. Obsidian's eyes gradually enlarged, filling Barabbas's entire field of vision. His heart pounded. Lord Nimrod not only failed to test his loyalty but also entrusted him with important responsibilities after their first meeting. He suppressed his adrenaline rush and looked around at the excited crowd. Even the calm Sharokin and the Iron Hands filled with hatred held their heads high. He recalled the Trident's halberd blade and the words Forex had spoken to him. Do you know? Lord Nimrod can even make a father happy. Chapter 1103 Lord Nimrod, Father designates this world as a forbidden zone. The Suza Galaxy, on the eastern edge of the Milky Way. Archmagos Corielzeth stood before the entire viewing window as the shutters slowly descended, revealing the true face of the void and the crimson storm stretching into the distance. Mentor, this is simply unbelievable. Apprentice Sage Conter Poke. The warp is turbulent, but Lord Nimrod's fleet remains unaffected. She looked up at the clock above her head. In just 3 standard hours and 16 minutes, the fleet completed the warp jump over 58 light years. Yes. I think there must be something in the shadow of sovereignty that led the fleet through the warp storm. The shadow of sovereignty flashed through Corey's mind, one forbidden zone after another that was not open to her. The newly built cathedral, the Primarch's War Council Hall. There are many such places, but the lower deck is the most likely, Corey said in the embedded new mind space. Kant paused, realizing that when she was still an apprentice, she had boarded a void ship as a representative and had some understanding of giant ships like Hive City. Indeed, the lower decks are usually the filthy places where the dregs who can't even be laborers struggle. My lord, the holographic connection has been established. Arsena Dunn's voice broke their private conversation. They turned and walked toward the holographic platform. A blurry, diamond blue figure appeared out of thin air. Lord Nimrod, I am Andalus, the commander of the 199th Company of the Ultramarines. It is an honor to speak with you, and I am even more pleased to receive news about you. But please forgive my rudeness. I forgive you, Nimrod said calmly. My lord, my father designated this world as a forbidden zone 125 years ago, to be permanently guarded by the 199th Company. No one is allowed to set foot here, including you. So please forgive me for not being able to greet you in person. He said in a serious tone, please leave immediately. I forgive your offense, Nimrod said with a smirk, but I must tell you that I need Pharos' alien device. After speaking, Nimrod's eyes flashed with light, and his consciousness spread out. After merging with Angren's pure soul and mind, he underwent a qualitative transformation in his spiritual realm. Without needing to hold any ceremony, his consciousness could travel more than 15 light years. Nimrod believed that under normal circumstances, his limit exceeded 30 light years. The devastating storm unleashed by Khorne stretches across the eastern galaxy, causing immense impact on the real world. This is like how the Tuchucha engine used to be able to jump thousands of light years in an instant, but now it can only jump within 1,000 light years and cannot cross that boundary. Nimrod's consciousness traversed the cold void and entered the shimmering jewel. Overlooking the vibrant ocean, rolling mountains, dense jungles, roaring animals, and fluttering insects. His deep eyes awakened memories of aerial views of Terra that I had once witnessed. This Terra-like planet was destined to be colonized during the Dark Age of technology, but there are no traces of any colonies, not even ruins. There is no doubt that Sosa was deliberately ignored by the settlers because of the ancient power hidden there. Nimrod's consciousness swept over the small agricultural settlement established by Gilliman, focusing on the towering Pharos Mountains. The wider the scope of his consciousness, the more scattered it becomes, and the lower his insight becomes. Nimrod deliberately avoided the heart of the mountains, focusing instead on the Ultramarines fortress atop the peak. His consciousness fell like a shooting star, silently heading towards the fortress. One by one, shining souls are reflected in the world. The source of the most dazzling light was a diamond blue warrior who suddenly looked up. With a thought, Nimrod drew the Osiris mind control staff from his waist. A faint blue light emanated, and his consciousness swept through layers of mental defenses like a shadow. Open black lens bracket. It turns out to be Opalde. Close black lens bracket. Nimrod was not surprised. As a powerful librarian, Opalde, though only a recruit, was undoubtedly the most perceptive person in Sosa. Just as his consciousness was about to drift away, a thought suddenly popped into his head. Open black lens bracket. Although Opalde has a strong will, the time spent tempering his will is still relatively short. Perhaps his heart can be subtly changed. Close black lens bracket. As Nimrod pondered, his state of mind suddenly rose to the second level of Magnus's state of mind. The shadows drifted silently, seeping into Opalde's soul. A sliver of light split from the shadows, revealing a colossal figure with black armor and golden wings. Nimrod gazed at the mental imprint, which continued to grow and expand, transforming into a giant. With a thought, the shadow quietly left Opalde's mind. The shadows swept across the minds of Ultramarines, landing in an office atop the mountain. The shadows crept into Andalus's heart. A gray sea of doubts ripples. In the island of the mind, the dominion of the blue giant pats Andalus on the shoulder. I am handing Sousa over to you. Until we understand the alien devices here, no one is allowed to set foot here. Andalus knelt on one knee, his gaze resolute. Father, leave it to me. I will not let you down. A cobalt blue aura suddenly surged forth, sweeping across the surroundings like a plowshare sweeping across a cave, while the gray mist vanished into thin air. As expected of Andalus, he actually managed to overcome his fear of a Primarch. No wonder they were able to achieve a 5-to-1 kill ratio against an attack by 20,000 Night Lords with inferior forces. As Nimrod pondered, a shadow quietly appeared. The figure in black armor and golden wings rapidly enlarged, and a consciousness imprinted itself upon it. Lord Nimrod must have come here for an important purpose. Even if it means disobeying my father's orders, I should not stop him. Boom. The azure waves collided with the figure in black armor and golden wings. Click. Cracks appeared on the black armor, and the golden wings turned completely black. Nimrod's eyes narrowed. Andalus's inner world was his domain, where his unwavering will would be amplified to its fullest extent. Killing him wouldn't be difficult, but changing his mind without him realizing it is not easy. A series of thoughts flashed through Nimrod's mind, and suddenly an idea came to him. The best way to break a determined person is to exploit their strongest beliefs. His most loyal follower is Guilliman. Well, only by linking me to his father can I break down his psychological defenses. Nimrod suddenly had an idea, and a shadow split out once more. A statue was quickly sketched out, depicting Guilliman standing in the square, clad in diamond blue armor. Andalus, I should tell you. In all my tactical simulations, there are 5 key figures who have all been able to resolutely and reliably fulfill their duties. With Rog, Sanguinius, Phoenix, and Lehman, we can defeat anyone. 4, and there's one more. Andalus pressed. Nimrod, he is the key to the dreadnought. If we fight alongside him, we will never fail. The shadows blended subtly into the diamond blue. Andalus was startled. My lord, since you need it, I think it is crucial to the current situation. I believe my father would also agree to your setting foot in Susa. My lord, just picked up the librarian again, Theogil of 4 staff exclaimed in surprise. This was my decision. My father appointed me as Sosa's guard, he trusted me. He would make the same decision. Prepare to welcome Lord Nimrod. Chapter 1104 Lord Perturabo, I have brought you a warning. Sosa, the helipad in the Faroes Mountains. The Aquila shuttle descended slowly, rustling through the dense forest. The honor guard of the 199th Company of Ultramarines stood in neat formation. Company Commander Andalus strode forward into the wind as the fan blades whirred, and stood before the black-armored, golden-winged giant. Lord Nimrod, welcome. Librarian Theogil frowned, gazing ahead with deep concern. The giant's boots, resembling marble statues, slammed to the ground, and the honor guard members all knelt on one knee. His gaze, like the deep night sky, gripped Theogil's heart. Every imperial offspring is noble beyond the name, but Lord Nimrod surpasses all others, even his father. His mind was blank, his thoughts scattered. Andalus, I have felt your passion. Return to your post, I will go to the alien device myself. The deep voice brought Theogil back to his senses. Earl of the Fallen, Nimrod led Barbas Danchich and the others toward the wide cave. Archmagos Corielzeth gazed at the towering figure as he stepped onto Lord Nimrod in Susa, a place vastly different from the past. He looked much more imposing than ever before, more imposing than the mountains beneath his feet, piercing the sky. He was like a god walking among men, and Sosa was nothing more than a grain of sand at his feet. Cori shook his head. Open black lens bracket. There are no gods, everything can be explained by science. Close black lens bracket. She accessed countless files to solidify the ideas in her mind. Lord Nimrod usually kept his otherworldly aura to himself. She moved her tentacles thoughtfully, and tapped her scepter lightly on Apprentice. Sage Conter Poke. Kant seemed to awaken from a dream. She lowered her head, shutting out all her senses of her imposing figure, and focused on her feet. The dim sunlight disappeared behind us, and the wide cave meandered downwards. The caves were carved out of the rock, like the inside of a conch shell. Barabbas looked around at the vast, interconnected caves that seemed to have been formed naturally. The cave's surface is smooth with soft lines, and there are no straight lines or sharp angles. Iron hands, iron fathers. Fred Samadika approaches the black rock face and gently strokes it with his fingers. The rocks have undergone special treatment and remain as good as new even after tens of thousands of years. It was like a black mirror, yet it didn't reflect any light, you could only see blurry shadows. Another iron father, Sabik Wayland, removed his gauntlets, tapped the rock wall lightly with his index finger, and then glanced at the smooth, deep stone well and the smooth, steep curves. Knock knock knock. This is an alien-shaped building. His fingers slid along the smooth, black rock face as he descended. We've arrived, Nimrod said, leading the group to the center of the mountain. Ulrich Brandon, the captain of the 65th Clan Company of the Iron Hands, scanned his surroundings. The wide cave had a hemispherical ceiling and a very flat ground. Looking ahead, Carell saw 6 enormous metal ingot-like objects rising from the ground, their rib-like structures extending to the dome and forming acute-angled breaks. The robot has no power components and is similar in composition to the flawless rock that makes up the tunnel walls. But the air was thick with an industrial atmosphere, and the power of machinery was as evident as the air itself. Barabbas stared at the shimmering device before him, his agitated resentment subsiding. He stepped forward until the golden wings obscured the light tower. He took a step back. Sir, my preliminary assessment is that this alien device operates using the legendary principle of quantum entanglement. Please allow me to begin research immediately so that it can be put to use for you as soon as possible. Nimrod's enormous eye looked down at its feet, where a bronze-colored star shone brightly. Open black lens bracket spiritual radiance, the ruler is indeed a potion ingredient, close black lens bracket. Zahorish has already devoured 7 more Khatan shards. Nimrod knew that Necrons had sealed 8 Khatan shards in the Pharos Mountains to power the control nodes. The ruler devoured the other 7 to survive the passage of millions of years. Open black lens bracket since Zahorish is already a supreme star god, there's no rush, close black lens bracket. Nimrod remembered that 10,000 years later, when Dora Kal was exploring the secrets of the Black Stone and went deep into the depths of Pharos, he met the supreme star god Zahorish, but he couldn't be sure how many pieces he had absorbed. He is now confident that he can defeat the less powerful Khatan shard, but the supreme star god is not yet absolutely certain, and in order to avoid causing changes to the Tower of Pharos, he has decided to refrain from action for the time being. At the same time that Barabbas began researching the alien device, his gene father was also conducting intensive research on the alien Void Fortress. Perturabo stands before thousands of cables, his dreadlocks, connecting the thinker array to every end of the fortress. Ninth Apocalypse Experiment, initiated. With his command, the surface of the Black Fortress lit up. The molten energy was injected into the dense network of cables, flowing into the plasma reactors of one 10,000-ton tugboat after another. A blinding light rose up, piercing through the void of the ship's hull. Hundreds of tugboats, spewing bright exhaust flames, trudged forward. They were like boatmen, dragging the Black Fortress along. Perturabo's dreadlocks swayed, sending up a dazzling spark. He drew inspiration from the way the Romulus-class star fort traversed the starry sky and the theory of the Kalium Gates delivery fleet to design a way to move alien fortresses. The inexhaustible energy within the Black Fortress enabled him to realize his vision. Perturabo watched as Blackstone Fortress drew ever closer to Mandeville Point, the marked distance numbers rapidly decreasing. Open black lens bracket, 9,250 kilometers, 4,180 kilometers, close black lens bracket. Beep beep. Shining runes rose up. The warp readings surged. A series of yellow runes lit up. With a thought, Perturabo issued a series of commands. Open black lens bracket tugboat number 1, turning 509, angle of inclination 6. Close black lens bracket. Tugboat number 1, turning 163, angle of inclination 5. Open black lens bracket. The Black Fortress gradually calmed down. A series of scarlet runes suddenly rose up. Crack. A series of electric sparks flew from the dreadlocks. One after another, the tugboat slowed down and came to a stop. Perturabo stared at the purple gold fleet and issued a command to Iron Blood. Inquire about the purpose of the Emperor's children's visit. He opened the log and reviewed the event record. A conclusion slowly emerged. The previous design only allowed the alien fortress to move within the galaxy. Once inside the warp, it will deviate from the planned course due to turbulence. Perturabo's brain began to calculate rapidly. There was no problem that couldn't be solved, not even the alien fortress. Next time, the Black Fortress will surely obey the will of the Iron Lord. As he was immersed in the calculations of the ocean of data, a message cut in at an inopportune moment. Lord Perturabo, I bring you a warning. Greater than. Chapter 1105 I will be killed countless times by Khorne who has lost his toys. The Bridge of Iron Blood welcomed back Perturabo, who had been away from her flagship for a long time. He sat high on his throne, gazing at the approaching Emperor's children. They were quite different from the other sons of Fulgrim, who were covered in thick smoke paint and decorated with disgusting ornaments such as human skin. Akurduana, what is this warning you're referring to? Find great books from Taiwan on the Taiwan Novel website, twkcon.com, super convenient. Akurduana gazes at the massive warhammer placed beside Perturabo's knees. That was a forgebreaker that my father forged by hand and gave to his close friend Ferrus Manus. Lord Perturabo, my father has commanded me to bring you before him. He will be waiting for you in the heart of Hydra. How could Fulgrim possibly think I'd be interested in his flashy stuff? He said there was an ancient weapon that could decide the outcome of the battle, Akurduana replied. I already own one, didn't you see? Akurduana recalled what had just happened on the Aquila shuttle. The pathway is empty, revealing a massive fortress. It is larger than both the Phalanx and the Abyssal-class warship, and is comparable to the magnificent fortresses where the Korana Deeps have appeared. Open black lens bracket. Perhaps it wasn't just the appearance, there was originally more than one black fortress, close black lens bracket. He thought of the conflict between Perturabo and Dorn. My lord, I see it. It is even larger than Phalanx. It's not just its appearance, it's even more powerful than the Phalanx in terms of firepower. You brought a request, not a warning. Akerduana sensed that Perturbo's tone had shifted from accusation to inquiry, and recalling the Black Emperor's oracle, he spoke. Fulgrim is deceiving you, trying to use you to ascend to the position of the Devil Prince, a god of chaos. What? Flax and the other Trident members roared in anger, reaching for the weapons at their waists. Perturbo waved his hand, a chaos god. Let's not even talk about the fact that there are no gods in the world. If it were true, why would you tell me? Akerduana shook his head. The warning I bring comes from your true brother, Nimrod. Open black lens bracket Nimrod, close black lens bracket. The name that had not been mentioned to him for a long time echoed in Perturbo's mind. He buried, Nimrod, deep in his mind, Fulgrim's beloved eldest son, who betrayed his father. It wasn't betrayal. Akerduana shook her head. During the war with Rangdan, I witnessed Lord Nimrod's heroic figure, and ever since then, I have followed him devoutly. Besides, you've seen how depraved the Emperor's children have become, they are still noble warriors. If you accuse me of betrayal, then what about you? Didn't you betray your brother by following Horus? Forex pulled out a bolter. Perturbo raised his hand. If you weren't Akerduana, you would be dead. I believe you won't lie, because you are Akerduana, and you are trustworthy. He stood up and grasped the Forgebreaker. Fulgrim really thinks his boastful words can deceive me, he is truly being fooled by those hypocritical gods. But I will go see him and see what his clown looks like. Akerduana frowned. Perturbo's stubbornness was unexpected. He must fulfill the Black Emperor's oracle. He killed Ferrus Manus. I know, Perturbo said. I won't give him a chance. I will teach my hypocritical brother a lesson. Deep within the Eye of Terror, a sea of blood surged and crashed down on the pale-skinned giant. The giant raised his arm, and a magnificent door appeared out of thin air. The moment the big door opened, he crashed inside. The blood-red wave crashed down, slamming onto the planet covered in countless sharp teeth. The sea of blood surged and spread, sharp teeth struggled and twisted, and were submerged in the crimson. In an instant, the planet of bones was stained blood-red. Idris. A magnificent door opened out of thin air, and a pale giant slammed to the ground. Magnus's understanding of warp is truly outstanding among Primarch's works. His teleportation and Sequence 5's Traveler are completely incomparable, and perhaps only Sequence 3's Wanderer can compare. Although the four Chaos Gods cannot exert their full power in the Eye of Terror, the true form will have to endure countless hardships to complete the journey of the Eye of Terror. The Shadow Clone is still ruled by my soul. Influenced by supernatural forces within the Eye of Terror, my soul is a brighter light, tower. I will be killed countless times by Khorne, who has lost his toy. As Nimrod pondered this, the idea of fusing a fragment of Magnus came to mind. Fire and biohazards are irrelevant, but devil-type abilities, especially teleportation, were really useful. Nimrod gathered his thoughts, and his shadow form looked up ahead. The supermassive black hole is outlined within the event horizon, surrounded by a massive hellish storm. An obsidian-like sphere, shrouded in an oily sheen, is a wound in the galaxy that spews supernatural matter into the void. It is a door of darkness, a singularity of unimaginable power, whose destructive core devours light, matter, space, and time. The Shadow's eyes darted around, taking in the surroundings. The world beneath his feet was vastly different from the worlds he had traveled through. It was unlike those storm-ravaged, nightmare-filled worlds. Miraculously, it remained unharmed amidst the miasma of warp's boiling energy, pure and flawless like a shining pearl in the darkness. It exhibits a perfect geometric shape, which cannot be formed naturally even in the real world. The gravitational pull of surrounding stars and celestial phenomena stretches or compresses planets, resulting in naturally formed planets being oblate spheroids. This type of world is common in the Eldar's maiden world. I have arrived in Idris. Nimrod breathed a sigh of relief. Lilith, the Eldar goddess of maidens, had held Idris tightly in her arms. Even the darkness, which devours everything, cannot tear cosmos apart. Although Idris is actually an old woman's world, it is no longer able to take away Lilith's beloved after being devoured by Slaanesh. Even Slaanesh could not devour Idris within Eye of Terror. Fulgrim was elevated to the rank of Devil Prince by offering it to Slaanesh. Now that I'm here, I'm safe. Lilith's protection has relieved me of my worries about the four Chaos Gods for the time being. With a thought, Nimrod activated Etheric Sight, his obsidian eyes darting around. A gentle song begins, a silent call filled with intense emotion. The dazzling exterior of the beautiful world has faded, revealing the true landscape shrouded in psionic mist. Towering buildings collapsed, magnificent palaces were buried in dust and sand, and splendid temples were littered with corpses. Billions of souls screamed, like countless steel needles piercing the brains of the shadow clones. Nimrod instantly pushed Magnus's state of mind to the 9th level, completely isolating him from the elegy. He had already fully grasped the first 8 levels of mental states through his previous exchanges with Magnus in Prospero and with the thousands of suns, including Hather-Mat. The shadow avatar merged with Magnus's soul fragments, and he was now able to skillfully enter the 9th level of mental state. He had even glimpsed that, apart from Magnus, no other 1,000 suns had successfully entered, except for Hather, who vaguely sensed the 10th level of his mind. Nimrod followed Slaudaw's memories, searching for Amun ni Shak Khalis, whose tomb, the mausoleum of Aisha's evil, was located in the heart of the city. Chapter 1106 You are the Angel of Extinction. Nimrod travels onward to the Arctic ice cap world, which resembles Terra, and activates Etheric sight to gaze at Amun ni Shak Kelly in the distance. The terrifying black sun at the core of the Eye of Terror looms over the city, as if it could swallow it whole. A hazy mist hung in the air, and strange colors swirled in the murky sky. The dim smoke illuminated the dense purplish-red bruises covering the yellowish-brown dome. A pale green light lazily shone on the entire tomb-like city, glistening with morbid foam like vomit. The city wall, hundreds of meters high, is smooth and flawless, like a carefully polished gemstone facet. The shadow materialized and stepped forward, its feet unleashing a surge of telekinetic energy. He leapt into the air, his boots slamming against the undulating city wall. The soft sigh suddenly intensified, and the irritating pressure stubbornly pulled at his thoughts. Nimrod continued his journey, his grooved, leaf-shaped dome piercing through the thin mist. His gaze passed over the elegant, milky white towers and landed on the distant mausoleum, which shimmered with a sickly green light. The screams and whispers he heard since he stepped into this world all originated from there. You shouldn't have come here. You should not disturb the peace of the dead. Quote. Nimrod spoke as he stepped forward. Your own kind have brought the angel of extinction to your graves. He knew there were no weapons at all. The Eldar prophesied angel of extinction was Fulgrim. The whispers faded away. Nimrod sensed the silence that had fallen over the center of the world, followed by a bone-chilling cold that seemed to freeze him solid. He smiled nonchalantly. He will offer you up to the great enemy, and your souls will be devoured. I heard a pitiful wail. You have cruelly devoured countless living beings. You are the angel of extinction. The sword in your hand was forged from the bones of our people. Nimrod shook his head slightly. Open black lens bracket. That's not entirely wrong. Close black lens bracket. His shadow incarnation, especially the main component of his body, is Hannibal's corpse. He had devoured tens of thousands of spirits to forge the bone sword in his hand. Nimrod raised his hand and aimed it at the statues on both sides of the street. Each statue is taller than Contemptor Dreadnought, yet they possess none of the imposing power one might expect. Their limbs are slender and carved from opaque crystal. Wing-like spines spread from the shoulders, and glittering gems shimmered in the center of their elongated helmets. Nimrod clenched his fist, and invisible ripples shot out from his black eyes. Bang bang bang. Thousands of statues exploded, and gems of various colors, including sea green, sky blue, and blood red, fell with screams. Amidst the flying debris, he flicked his wrist, and oval gems of different colors flew over. The shadow avatar grasped a sky blue gem. It felt cool to the touch, yet tinged with fear. Spirit Stone. With a thought, Nimrod caused a thin layer of black mist to rise. Whoosh! The Spirit Stone vanished into thin air and landed inside a separate palace in the Nation of Disorder. The shadow avatar is centered around a portion of Nimrod's soul and shadow. As the chosen master of the Nation of Disorder, he can mobilize the power of Sephira to a certain extent, though not as much as the original body. The shadow emanated and moved forward, and in an instant, tens of thousands of spirit stones filled a palace. Open black lens bracket. A future large-scale expedition by the Eldar will only yield so few spirit stones, and will also result in the loss of many Eldar. Close black lens bracket. There are still billions of spirit stones ahead. All the future arcs combined won't have as many spirit stones as I'm about to receive. As Nimrod pondered, he strolled forward. The surrounding green walls, emitting a faint glow, all emitted a piercing scream. Thousands upon thousands of thoughts of hatred swept over us like countless bolts of lightning. The shadow figure sheathed the bone sword back into its waistband, its obsidian-like eyes gleaming. His state of mind dropped to the 8th level, focusing on the aggression. Snap snap snap. He clapped his hands lightly, the sound echoing between the walls, the impact of his thoughts spreading and reverberating. Boom boom boom. The wall collapsed with a crash, and spirit stones of different colors fell down. Nimrod raised his hand again, and tens of thousands of spirit stones swirled into his palm. As he collected the spirit stones, his eyes focused, looking at each one intently. While within the Eye of Terror, which is influenced by supernatural forces, he does not need to descend to the third level of mental state to see what is happening inside the spirit stone. One angry and fearful soul after another. Their brilliance was far dimmer compared to that of Slough Da. The shimmering spiritual radiance was almost non-existent, falling far short of the quality of Sequence 3-level potion materials. Before the fall of the Eldar had no urgent need to travel the path. The spirit souls within these spirit stones do not meet the requirements. Well, but it's not entirely useless. As Nimrod pondered, he arrived before a magnificent palace, vast in area and ornately decorated. The entire palace is a naturally growing aggregate of organic crystals, which is growing at an alarming rate. The mausoleum of Isaac's persecution. Nimrod gazed at the building before him, a structure that combined organic and artificial elements. The placement of your graves in the city center foreshadows your fate. The shrieking sound grew louder and louder. Nimrod's gaze swept over the necklaces and brooches of the deceased embedded in the walls, and across the lower half of each exterior wall adorned with vibrant frescoes and mosaics. The right half of each mural is similar, depicting a weeping girl in death with different expressions. Some girls sobbed softly, while others wept loudly. Some deaths brandished scythes, others carried green lanterns. The left half of the mural depicts scenes from each of the deceased's lives. They all raised their arms in boundless joy, only to be plunged into an endless, recurring, all-consuming despair. Nimrod's eyes suddenly widened as he spotted an arched doorway, its facade radiating a dazzling spiritual light, amidst the mournful towers and ivory domes that dotted the surrounding area. It is like moonlight woven together, light and translucent. Open black lens bracket this spiritual radiance and curly shape, close black lens bracket. Death, pathway. The main material for Sequence 4 is Door of the Underworld. There was an unexpected bonus. Nimrod glanced at the two crystal-like titans standing at the entrance, his black eyes darting around. After a moment's thought, he turned and walked toward the nearest door to the underworld. Ah! A cold wind suddenly blew up. Hannibal's armor was shrouded in a layer of cold mist. The mist turned into water droplets in an instant, and then condensed into ice in another. Thump! The shadow transformed into an ice sculpture. A flame ignited in his black eyes. Call! Flames rolled and flowed, swirling around the shadowy figure. The arched door swayed slightly, rippling like water. On the murals on the exterior walls, one after another, young girls shed tears of fear. Death turned around in unison, facing the shadow avatar. The pale face hidden by the hood gradually became clear, and his eyes shot out beams of eerie green light. The shadow avatar rapidly dimmed, eventually becoming completely blurred. The shadows flowed, spreading towards the door of the underworld. Crackling sound. A deep blue light struck the ground, and the crystal quickly decayed, turning into sand as if it had been weathered for millions of years in an instant. The shadow grew rapidly in front of the great door. Nimrod vaguely heard the shrieking sound from behind the great door getting closer and closer. Suddenly, a cloud of black mist rose from his palm and he pressed it onto the door of the underworld. The air rippled like water, and the great door vanished into thin air, appearing in the first level of the Nation of Disorder. Fortunately, while the shadow avatar cannot use other Beyonder abilities, as an embodiment of shadow, it can use shadow-related abilities and spells. Otherwise, this avatar might not be able to collect the door of the underworld, the original body would have to come. As Nimrod pondered, he swiftly circled the mausoleum, collecting doors from the underworld. He had just taken the 149th and final great door into the Nation of Disorder, when a series of crashing sounds came from all around. The wailing suddenly intensified, and tens of thousands of glowing smoke pillars shot out. Amidst the billowing smoke, dazzling light emanated from the gems embedded within the bodies of the two colossal Eldar titans. The thorns on his shoulders spread out like wings, bursting forth with dazzling energy. Their fists flowed with shimmering halos, and their elegant joints moved with a booming sound like glaciers shattering. Chapter 1107. You think the transdimensional maze can trap me? Ah! Nimrod looked around. A cold wind swept through the 149 arched doors, and emerald mist drifted by. Tens of thousands of shimmering ghosts appeared out of thin air, clad in close-fitting armor and wielding elegant swords. Pale eyes shone with a cold light through the porcelain helmet, staring hatefully at the extinction angel with a bone sword at his waist. As they walked, they passed through the elegant buildings without any hindrance, and in an instant, they floated to the face of the extinction angel. The shadow emanated a wisp of black mist from its right palm, and a bone mask appeared out of thin air. With a flick of his wrist, the mask covered the upper half of his face. A chill spread through my body, green mist filled the air, and a virtual door opened out of thin air. Green vines spread and grew, coiling up the ghosts of the dead Idris and dragging them into the great door. In the blink of an eye, the ghost army vanished into thin air. Eldar Titan moved silently through the mist, its body shimmering with a hazy halo, and its arms blazing with dazzling emerald beams of light. With a flick of his wrist, the shadow figure unleashed a cloud of black mist from his right palm, and the bone mask vanished in an instant. He drew his bone sword, and his right fist was wrapped in blinding energy lightning. The shadow form raised its arm and fist to meet the overwhelming barrage of emerald beams of light. Boom! Blue lightning ripped through the emerald mist, and a churning mushroom cloud shot into the sky. It illuminates the entire city of Amun Nishak Kalis. A deafening roar shook the ground, and the shadowy figure's feet shattered beneath them. The shadows blurred rapidly, moving beneath the elegant wraithbone. The emerald beam condensed into a gleaming spear, which whistled as it pierced down. Boom! The emerald green spear pierced the ground, carving out a trench several kilometers deep with each thrust. A figure was outlined within the emerald green light screen. The shadow avatar charged toward Eldar Titan on the left, while flames erupted from its right palm. The billowing flames slammed against Eldar Titan's chest. Crimson flames and emerald green fire clashed and tore at each other, while thunderous explosions drowned out the death screams of the dead. The smoke swirled and churned, and shadows materialized as they rose into the air. He leapt instantly in front of the slender head, and the bone sword pierced the emerald flames. Hannibal's pale arm distortion spun, and the bone sword flew and pierced into the hollow skull. Emerald green flames crackled and fell, spewing forth a burst of whistling light. He suddenly reached out his right arm and grabbed the gleaming spirit stone. Black mist rose from his palm, and the spirit stone vanished into thin air. The bulb-shaped helmet spewed out dazzling light, amidst shimmering ripples of light and shadow. A skull face appeared, grinning maliciously. The furious roar surged straight into the shadows, transforming into the mind. Call! The skull face exploded into a puff of smoke and slowly dissipated. Emerald green flames scattered and drifted, and Wraithbone lost his balance and slowly fell. The shadow figure raised its hand and placed it on Eldar Titan, its elegant, enormous body vanishing into thin air and landing in the Nation of Disorder. A deathly shriek ripped through the sky, and a spear of emerald flames hurtled toward the pale body. Hannibal twisted his body, turning towards Eldar Titan at an incredible angle. His obsidian eyes flashed, and dazzling warp energy surged wildly into the aggressive focal point constructed by Magnus's eighth layer of mind. As he extended his right palm, a dazzling vortex erupted forth. The vortex of destruction engulfed the emerald flames, churning Wraithbone's body like a spinning drill. Smoke billowed into the sky. The Eldar Titan's body radiated light, with tattered spine wings hanging from its shoulders. It staggered backward, and a gust of air rose up. The black rock, the embodiment of shadow, flashed with light in its eyes and clenched its right hand tightly. Click! The spirit stone slowly rose into the air. The skull face rose up and rushed straight at the shadow avatar. Bang! The skull face suddenly vanished, and the spirit stone, trailing light, fell into his right palm. The shadow avatar flipped and fell, pressing down on the broken skeleton. Whoosh! The Wraithbone skeleton vanished into thin air. The combat boots slammed onto the ground with a thud. Nimrod strode toward the tomb, recalling the battle he had just fought and analyzing the shadow avatar's combat strength. Open black lens bracket. His body is inherited from Hannibal, and his strength, speed, flexibility, and agility surpass the average level of Primarch. Close black lens bracket. Argos flashed through his mind, along with the scene of his battle with Magnus against the Eldar Titan. Idris is in the Eye of Terror, near the Psionic Titan and Tzeentch. The two corrosion machines are almost equally powerful. Magnus struggled to defeat a psionic titan back then, but now, with just a fragment, he handles it with ease. The psychic power my shadow clone wields far surpasses that of the outside world. Magnus might not be able to defeat a few Primarchs in the real world, but he can defeat most of them in the Eye of Terror and Orb. As Nimrod pondered, he entered the narrow entrance guarded by two psionic titans and stepped into the mausoleum of Aisha's evil. The walls radiated a light like that of the ocean floor, and the smooth floor was covered with capillary-like patterns that spread inwards. His footsteps left dull bruises on the ground, as if he were walking on the surface of some neural network. Like other Eldar creations, it has perfect proportions, with all its components in harmonious unity. Nimrod's gaze swept over the spiderweb-like buttresses and the spiraling sermons, finally settling on a walkway that spiraled upwards. The emerald green light that permeated the entire building all emanated from that direction. He walked along the walkway and arrived at the main entrance, which is 300 meters high. The source of the light was eerily shrouded in complete darkness. Complete darkness swallowed all light. He walked through the leaf-shaped arched door and stepped into darkness. He was greeted by the supernatural darkness. He felt as if he were in an endless darkness, and he took a step back, but did not return to the outside of the darkness. A suffocating fog enveloped him, imprisoning his body. He looked around, but the impenetrable darkness limited Hannibal's senses. The shadow avatar's state of mind returned to the third level. As consciousness spread outwards, the psionic mist gradually dissipated, and passages emerged from the deep darkness. Obsidian eyes swept across the ever-changing paths and fickle dimensions constructed by the black walls. He looked ahead and said, "You think this trans-dimensional maze can trap me?" Nimrod recalls that one of the main reasons Fulgrim chose Perturabo was that he couldn't navigate the maze. Perturabo's superhuman computing abilities make him the best, perhaps only, candidate to navigate the maze. Nimrod believed that his physical body could also traverse this labyrinth using his superhuman senses. His avatar may not possess this ability, but Slaudah's memories will help him complete his journey. The shadows stepped forward, the surrounding walls remaining perfectly smooth, while distant light moved across the deep, luminous surface, rotating like a distant galaxy. His gaze swept over the points of light within the wall, each one arranged according to a non-Euclidean equation. They are unique and different from one another. They are all stars in the universe. Nimrod imprinted every star in the multiple overlapping dimensions in his mind and compared them one by one with those in Slaudah's mind. The maze's path gradually became clearer, and he spent less and less time pausing at the maze's bends. The surrounding maze-like paths were intertwined like a tangled snake, constantly rearranging themselves as he moved forward. Nimrod made his way through cross-dimensional calculations, fixing spatial, warp, and mathematical reference points in his mind as he meandered back to the origin 3 times. Wander through spiraling corridors, through rooms, tunnels, and echoing halls that confuse and disturb the mind. He stopped at a fork in the road, glanced at the 4 lanes, and then walked toward the second one on the left. Emerald green mist shot into the sky, swirling around his body. A piercing shriek entered my ears. Idris convulsed and twitched, it awoke with hatred. Greater than. Chapter 1108 Fragments of Lilith's Power. Nimrod entered the heart of the tomb of Aisha's evil. The mausoleum's grounds resemble a seabed covered with pearls, and are surrounded by a forest of slender, pointed towers. The winding path meanders between the towers, the shortest of which is still several hundred meters high. The pointed towers are segmented, some gradually tapering, and others bulging like stalactites. Each tower is inlaid with sparkling spirit stones, which flicker in the flowing light. Mist seeped from the tower's tip, shimmering in a rhythmic, breathing pattern, enveloping the tomb chamber. This book is first published on Taiwan Novel Network _TKAN.com, offering a fantastic reading experience with error-free and disordered chapters. The dark shadows slid down the tower, flowing like a rushing river. Nimrod did not immediately collect the spirit stone, but instead looked around and observed the interior of the tomb. The entire mausoleum has no graves or tombstones, nor any physical memorials such as statues or obelisks to commemorate the deceased, nor even long inscriptions recording achievements and lineage. The Eldar commemorate the dead in a very different way, something he already knew from Slaudah's memories. He preached along a 30-meter-wide path toward the source of the green light. In the center of the cave, a deep vertical shaft with its gaping maw opens wide, from which a dazzling emerald green fountain gushes forth, transforming into a beam of light that shoots straight up to the golden dome. The highest point of the beam of light was an absolute, all-consuming darkness, which was both still and churning. The shadows manifested as obsidian eyes that shimmered, discerning shapes in the deep void of darkness. That was a black hole. It swallows up the boundaries beyond galaxies, the land and galaxies beyond imagination. Nimrod felt it was like another eye of terror, clinging to the world beneath its feet, protecting it from the clutches of Slaanesh. He carefully traversed the path, approaching the shining tip tower. The swirling emerald mist grew thicker, and the shadows maintained the third layer of mental state. He gazed at the planet, where it seemed as if a loom was weaving together trillions of threads into a vast torrent. The shaft has a diameter of 200 meters and is perfectly circular. The well walls are covered with a continuous stream of runes. He searched Slaudah's memories, but there were still some runes he couldn't understand. Open black lens bracket necromantic magic of the Eldar, close black lens bracket. Nimrod learned from Slaudah's memories that the Eldar, a long-lived species, had virtually no interest in the mysteries of death. Idris, however, was unconventional. Even the center of Amun-Ni-Shak Kalis was a mausoleum. Open black lens bracket. If the god of the dead were to awaken now, the people of Idris would become his benefactors, close black lens bracket. As Nimrod pondered, all the spirit stones embedded in the upper floor of the tower expanded and contracted like tumors or breaths. A piercing scream rang out from the suffocating fog, and crimson, azure, and emerald light surged with furious brilliance. A sapphire surrounding the side of the tower is being squeezed outwards, stretching into the shape of a human figure. He was taller and thinner than Astartes. He emerged from the tower, trailing a trail of light, his claw-like arms raising a gleaming staff. As the misty air swirled, tens of thousands of vengeful spirits emerged. Each of them was more solid than the spirit ghosts they encountered outside the mausoleum. The souls of millions of priests, entangled in a dense spectrum of wavelengths, gradually awakened. The obsidian figure, an embodiment of shadow, moved its eyes and raised its right hand, a dazzling shield enveloping its body. Hissing, a vast expanse of silver light swept in, striking the psychic shield. Bang! The shield shattered instantly. The shadows rapidly blurred, dissolving into the shadows of the tower. Call! Billions of souls screamed in unison. A catastrophic scenario depicting the end of civilization unfolds. They spoke of their love, dreams, and hopes. They recounted feelings of loss, profound loneliness, and the fear of struggling within the ever-shrinking boundaries of a doomed world. They confessed to falling into unnatural desires of pleasure and indulgence, depicting the wanton debauchery and reckless madness that destroyed the entire civilization. An endless sorrow surged down upon Nimrod like a torrent, its mournful cries even reaching through the veil and through the connection, flooding into Nimrod's heart. Nimrod's spine emitted a dazzling golden light, illuminating the heart of the Pharos Mountains. Archmagos Corielzeth followed the light and stared at the dazzling golden light that rose up. She recorded every ray of golden light. You have chosen the path of destruction, you have dug your own graves. The shadows silently flowed through the mist, spreading towards the bottom of the shaft. Nimrod sensed billions of souls being woven into the roaring matter of light rising from the bottom of the shaft, desperately wanting to etch the story into his mind. Hiss! The shadow falls to the bottom of the shaft, which is also the starting point of a slender bridge. The entire bridge extends in an arch shape towards the center of a spherical hall. The bridge foundation is anchored to the equator, connecting 24 bridges. The sphere of light, radiating a sacred emerald glow, burned fiercely like a miniature sun. Obsidian eyes moved, revealing that the entire Idris was a hollow world, with this vast void at its core. The emerald sun resides at its heart, and billions of spirit stones are scattered across the surrounding bridges, their shimmering points of light forming the cosmos sky. Fulgrim Ascension Grounds. A ladder of ascension paved with the souls of billions of spirit race members. As Nimrod pondered, he gazed at the verdant sun. Open black lens bracket, a fragment of Lilith's power, close black lens bracket. He activated spirit vision and gazed at the radiant spiritual light emanating from it. Open black lens bracket, it lacks the rich spiritual radiance of the world serpent and hand of order, close black lens bracket. A vibrant world, a desolate mausoleum, the dead transformed into evil spirits, the mother pathway, the potion ingredients for sequence 2 inches desolate matriarch. The world Lilith embraced, rather than the maiden world modified by the Eldar, was fundamentally composed of the main material of the desolate matriarch. As Nimrod pondered, the shadow form quietly retreated. His figure moved between the bridges, and billions of spirit stones flowed into the first level of the Nation of Disorder. Nimrod then traveled the world, collecting anything of value, including Wraithbone, that he could find. Not only potion ingredients, but also ancient Eldar runes and wandering ghosts. Finally, he dived back into the shaft. The shrieking sound vanished without a trace, but the emerald green fog grew even thicker. Obsidian eyes darted around, etheric sight sweeping across the bridge. Chug! 4 elegant constructs emerged from the bridge's ground, resembling exquisite dolls, but they were neither spirits nor the dead. They each held a weapon, aiming at the shadows. With a flick of his wrist, Construct unleashed a gleaming spear that whistled through the air, carrying with it the sound of chanting, piercing the shadows. The shadow emanated rapidly and took shape, the obsidian eyes flashed, and an arm reached out. The silver-white singing spear suddenly stopped, then accelerated and spun. Construct's eyes blazed with emerald flames, and he suddenly raised his hand. The silver spear suddenly stopped, trembling incessantly. Another construct swung his staff, unleashing a bolt of lightning. The shadow transformed into a being surrounded by raging flames, and lightning bolts struck the flames. 2 constructs, one on the left and one on the right, each wielding a gleaming sword and a powered spear. The shadow avatar raised its pale left arm, and the bone sword spun and struck the blade and spear. Whoosh! A construct emerged from behind the shadow avatar, the shadows coiling around the blade, slashing towards his back. Greater than. Chapter 1109 Slaanesha's Temptation, Khorne's Killing Intent. The shadow's right ring finger, its pale and swollen pad emitting a wisp of black mist, conjured a fiery ring from thin air. Flames erupted, engulfing the pale body. Chainsword pierced the flames, stirring up bursts of Mars. The shadow transformed into a streak of light, hurtling towards the verdant sun. Two elegant structures leap lightly. The powered spear cleaved down, tearing a dent in the ground. The gleaming blade struck the stream of flames, creating a burst of steam. The flames splashed and then suddenly reformed into a human shape. The singing spear spun and danced, piercing straight into the center of the flames. Suddenly, flames burst forth and spread outwards in a swirling motion. The silver spear whizzed through the center of the vortex of flames. Lightning bolts filled the sky, showering down streaks of electricity. The vortex of flames exploded into a sky full of Mars. Wine fell between the constructs and the bushes. Mars suddenly coalesced and reformed into human form. The emerald green sun shone with dazzling light, as if a star were burning. Flames rose into the air, casting black smoke into the emerald green sun. A wisp of black mist rose silently. The emerald green sun sizzled. Suddenly, the emerald green sun vanished into thin air. Bang bang bang. 5 concrete structures crashed onto the bridge. The shadow avatar reappeared, and he strode quickly along the bridge, swiftly collecting the 5 constructs into the nation of disorder. A purple mist filled the air. The 24 bridges sprouted countless tentacles, moving with a rustling, thirsty urge. They swayed and swept across the entire tomb, as if admiring an exquisitely crafted toy. The desperate sucking sounds were like the booming of a bellows. Nimrod. The tentacle swayed, stirring up a cloud of purple mist. A body of indistinguishable gender appeared and disappeared, its claws reaching out to gently caress the mist. The Emperor tells you that he is your father. He is deceiving you. I am your other father. The Eldar call me she who thirsts, or Slanesh. He told you that Warp has no gods, he deceived you. The 24 bridges are reflected in countless mirrors. Give me the soul of the dead from Idris, and I will give you everything. Each reflection sways and shimmers, creating a different scene. In a reflection, he had ram horns on his head, long white hair that fluttered in the wind, and skin that shimmered with pearl color, exuding a beauty that surpassed even Sanguinius and Fulgrim. In another reflection, his body snaked around, each of his 4 arms wielding a magnificent sword, a crystal staff, and a silver spear. The golden scimitar, one of its crab claws gleaming with sharp teeth as it opened and closed, and the other a long whip that lashed out with a snap. Nimrod's obsidian eyes swept around, and a smile played on his lips. I refuse. His eyes shone with dazzling light, and a beam of light seemed to appear out of thin air. The purple tentacles swayed and detached, drifting in the wind before exploding into a cloud of purple blood mist. A viscous, purple sea of blood surged and swirled towards the light door like a vortex. Nimrod strode into teleportation door, he swept the light across the sharp tower. Crimson blood seeped from the elegant tower, and a thick mist of blood rose up. As expected, Khorne smelled the scent, and bite at me again. Blood and purple intertwined, like 2 giant pythons coiling together. Rumble. Idris began to die from the inside out. The pearly surface of the sphere dimmed rapidly in seconds, and the pristine ground was tainted by the erupting mist that shot straight into the troposphere. The remaining buildings on the surface were torn apart by powerful seismic waves originating deep within the Earth's core, and massive fault lines, much like tectonic plates, were submerged underground. The power at the heart of the Eye of Terror, fueled by greed and the fury of revenge, seeks to reclaim control of the entire world. The black hole-like energy engulfed everything, matter and light. Blood mist and purple mist intertwined and spread, sweeping across worlds. On a yellowish-brown planet, tribes clad in animal skins fight each other. A tribal warrior with a blue snake tattooed on his right arm roared loudly. His teeth were stained black, and his tongue was stretched out and turned pink. His right arm was twisted and coiled, with his wrist strangely emerging from his elbow. The 5 fingers become sharp, gradually developing into claws. He looked up and exclaimed, "The Prince of Darkness has blessed me." He roared as he charged toward the enemy, his undulating arms like a giant python emerging from its lair. Claws tore open the enemy's chest, and the arm wriggled, burrowing into his body. The burly man with a hunting dog tattooed on his left arm convulsed, staring in horror at the gurgling blood gushing out. PFF'd. A stream of blood splattered out. The warrior blessed by Slanesh pierced his waist with the silver sword in his left hand, tore human skin from his claws, and stuck it to his chest. Roar. He drew his sword and looked in the direction of the roar. An enemy grabbed the tribal warrior's flowing hair and chopped off his head with a whistling axe blade. He raised his head high, shouting, "Blood sacrifice to the blood god," skull offered as a seat. A wisp of blood mist drifted down and landed on the giant axe. The axe blade was stained with blood, as if it were covered with a layer of blood-red crystals. The blood axe spun around, exploding into a cloud of blood mist. Khorne followers shouted as they charged toward Slanesh followers. The blood axe cleaved down. The live whip was lashed out violently. The crimson blood and purple mist did not linger or stop, but spread and intertwined through worlds, chasing the flashing illusory door. Bang! The pale body crashed into a passage in the Pharos Mountains. He looked back at the dissipating crimson blood mist and purple fog. The bone sword spun out, and geometric shapes appeared out of thin air. After setting up the Euclidean sigil, he took a step and arrived at the Nation of Disorder. The black-armored, golden-winged giant slowly turned around. You did well. This trip to Idris yielded a fragment of Lilith's power, the Mother Pathway. The main material for Sequence 2, Desolate Matriarch, is the 149 doors of the Underworld, the Death Pathway. The main ingredients for Sequence 4, Undying, are 3.692 billion spirit stones and 1.47 million vengeful spirits. Hannibal's mouth split open, revealing a deep bloodstain. We did a good job. Nimrod nodded, took a step, and returned to the real world. After arriving at the Primarch office, he ordered the fleet to set sail for the Eastern Galaxy. The 6 chapters that participated in the battle have rested and recuperated in the Triple System. It's time to conquer the entire Ghoul Stars. Archmagos Coriel Zeth, Warsmith of Iron Warriors, Barabbas Danshich, Iron Hands, Iron Fathers, Fred Samadika and Sabak Wieland, were left by him in Pharos to study the Lamp Tower device. He also left behind 3 squads led by an adjutant to report to him through prayer. After the fleet left the detection range of Sosa's bird-shaped array, an invisible light curtain enveloped the entire fleet. The fleet vanished into thin air amidst the roaring storm of destruction. The destructive storm isolated the Eastern Galaxy, bringing destruction to many worlds, but it also gradually calmed the turbulent warp on the edge of the isolated, the Maelstrom, region. Located at the farthest end of the Kola Inner Ring, the outpost of the Order Shadow, Salamanders, Thousand Suns, and White Scars, has been redeemed. Chapter 11:10 The Traitor of Order Shadow. Khura'in, the primary star of a distant galaxy. Forge Master of Order Shadow, Rozicki Chek looked ahead and saw a specially designed cantilever crane lowered down, ensnaring the entire honeycomb-like structure. Amidst a faint tremor inaudible to the average person, the cellular network rises from the ground. The entire building has an irregular architectural structure, with each unit being approximately hexagonal. They stretch out in a continuous line, forming a collective beehive. A series of runes leapt into the air, and the anti-gravity device suspending the honeycomb shone with a blinding light. Rozicki's gaze followed the cellular network upwards, the cables steadily pulling the building up slowly. Alien hive networks can protect the entire world during warp storms. Following the Black Emperor's orders, he arrived in the distant Khura'in system, where he met with the Salamanders, Campfire, the Guardian, White Scars, and the Thousand Suns. Besides finalizing the Saturnine pattern Terminator and the Saturn-type Dreadnought, Librarian has been studying irregular architecture from the perspective of a seasoned archaeologist. Now, he wants to demolish the entire building and take it away. He looked away and whispered to the pastor beside him who was holding a staff. Has my lord completed his mission? Sir, their subconscious has already turned in our favor, Dreamwalker replied. Rozicki nodded in satisfaction and turned to the librarian. Miguel Cuesta asked, is the evacuation complete? Miguel, a science and technology student, is holding hands with a heart-forged staff member. Sir, all the energy flows of the Maelstrom recorded at the outpost have been archived, including all data on the counter-currents and calming of the warp turbulence that occurred 4 years ago after the Maelstrom awakened and devoured the warp turbulence and destructive storms in neighboring star systems. Quote, all psionic relics have been collected, organized, and stored in the librarium. It's time to leave, Rozicki said, and walked toward the black Aquila shuttle. The Aquila shuttle ascended rapidly. Rozicki looked across and saw Miguel, who had just sat down, eagerly sipped a cup of cradle of the CT infused with mandrake, and only after gulping it down did he breathe a sigh of relief. Although the influence of the alien ruins spared them from the hallucinations within the Maelstrom, the librarians were more acutely aware of the warp. The Order Shadows had to fight back against the Thelema state of mind. Mandrake also drew closer to White Scars and Thousand Suns. A bridge for librarian relations. Rozicki leaned back in the leather seat, gazing out the window. The forge's hull opened, and cables pulled the alien honeycomb structure slowly up to the lower deck. Techmarine stands atop the scaffolding, directing Legion minions to operate clamps to secure the honeycomb structure. The Aquila shuttle continued its ascent from the side and landed on the flight deck. Rozicki stepped into the gravity elevator and went straight to the flight deck. As he walked onto the deck and exchanged greetings with Storm Seer Nikidal of White Scars, a piercing buzzing sound rang out. Beep beep. The communications manager's voice rang out. Sir, the Auspex Array chief reports that 2 fleets have entered the real world. Keel feedback identified an evasive warship as the strike cruiser Endless Road, White Scars. The pursuing warship is from Death Guard, but the Keel identification results do not match the database. Why would Death Guard attack Legion's warships? Nikidal asked, puzzled. The Death Guard has betrayed the Empire. They followed the traitorous Horus. Although the Karain distance system was isolated by the warp turbulence, Rozicki maintained control of the Empire's situation through messengers. Nikidal doubted he had heard correctly. How could Warmaster betray the Empire? What? My lord, the Endless Road has sent a communication message. Connect, Rozicki instructed. I am Dane Khan of White Scars. The sharp voice shot into the communication channel like the buzzing of an arrow. A traitor to Order Shadow. Nikidal spoke before Rozicki could. I am Nikidar, Dane. Do you know what you are doing? You are accusing Lord Nimrod's offspring. The Thousand Sons betrayed the Empire, and the Emperor ordered the Wolf King to punish them. Daniel's words pierced the mind of the numerologist Okafor like a sharp arrow, and the furious roar of Thousand Sons fell silent. Nikidal, you have walked with traitors and betrayed the Empire. You are insulting my honor. Nikidar's force staff erupted in a blazing light. He couldn't believe that Shigori's Khan, who had once been so open-minded, could have become so vicious. Crackling sound. The crackling sound of electricity came from the communication channel. Traitor. Dane shouted coldly, hanging up the communication. Sir, Death Guard's fleet has been detected, attempting to board the Endless Road. Dane went through a perilous journey before he dared to insult your honor, Nikidar said. Rozicki, I need your help. Bridge of the Endless Road. The boots of Ignatius Grurger, the company commander of the 2nd Company of the Death Guard, slammed onto the deck, and his scythe drew a deadly arc, severing 2 White Scars in half. Traitor. Dani Khan knew that his Dawn Sky, Brotherhood, had no way out. He is surrounded by traitors. But in the final step of his journey, he will unleash a blazing light, tearing apart the darkness that shrouds the Empire. He will kill Grulger. With a resounding crack of his fist, Dane Khan roared as he lunged at Grurger. Grulg waved his scythe dismissively. Entropy is the most powerful force in the universe, it transcends everything. A puff of green mist emanated from the incense burner on his chest. The scythe whistled through the air as Dane Khan dodged the green blade. His fist slammed down on Gruer. The smell of rust seeped into the breathing grill, making my stomach churn. Danye Khan grumbled and swallowed the nauseating bile, and pain shot through his nerves. Gruer drew the plague dagger that 1st Company Chief Kala Typhon had given him. The mark of the Great Destroyer has stained all things. The rusty iron easily tore through the power fist and pierced the back of Daniel's hand. Bang! Dane fell to the ground. The pain traveled along his nerves. Sweat poured down like rain, dripping onto the ground. Dane's skin was swollen and blistered. Crack! The blister burst. Dane felt his joints were swollen and inflamed. His implanted organs were struggling to repair his body, but the dagger's toxins overwhelmed his immune system. Dane's vision blurred, and he strained to open his eyes to look at the suddenly appearing shadow. Black armor. A traitor to Order Shadow. His eyes gleamed with a pale golden light as he stared at Grulg. He waved his hand gently, as if to greet someone. Dane's pupils suddenly widened, and Gruerg actually turned his dagger around and plunged it into his chest. The green, rusty dagger pierced straight into the Cataphractii Terminator armor. Gruel let out a gurgling roar, and green blood oozed from his wound. He spat out a mouthful of acidic mucus, and a wisp of green mist rose from the deck. His fingers were cancerous and white, crackling loudly. Do you think your mind control is meant to hurt me? No, you're helping me. Gruel looked toward Order Shadow. I thank you. Accept my gift. Chapter 1111 Nurgle Prince Devil. Ignatius Grurger, the company commander of the 2nd largest company of the Death Guard, was covered in Cataphractii Terminator armor. Distortion failure. His massive head topped off his helmet, and a horn emerged from between his eyebrows. The horn twitched and pierced through the helmet, which was very similar to the horned helmet worn by Kala Typhon, the company commander of the 1st Company. Order Shadow, what do you think of my new look? Grurger's voice was completely different from 7 seconds ago, it was gurgling and nauseating. Have I offended your fragile heart? Looking at the swollen body, Dreamwalker thought, my combat hypnosis just now didn't really threaten him. It was more like a pleasure for him, at least for him. That's why it succeeded. As he pondered, his obsidian-like eyes suddenly narrowed. The swollen body charged at him with an astonishing speed completely out of proportion to its size. He casually swung his hand, and the scythe exploded with an ominous burst of green light. Dreamwalker developed a layer of scales on its body and snatched the shepherd's staff from its hand. I am the forerunner of the future, and you are nothing but a wretched wretch. Prince Gruulg of Devil sneered. The true path to enlightenment lies in dispelling the warp, it makes even your emperor pale in comparison. Nimrod had the opportunity to enter this great door, but he was frightened by the false emperor's ban and missed the gift. Heresy. Dreamwalker. He shouted, his staff meeting the sickle. Boom. The hissing force field tore apart a piece of rusty debris, splattering liquid everywhere, and slammed into the Pluto-type Terminator armor. Dreamwalker glanced at a white scars, his chainsword flying as he tried to bite into the Death Guard's armor. His body quickly became ethereal and suddenly disappeared from the spot. A figure suddenly leapt out of Death Guard's body, quickly focused, and swung his staff, which glowed, toward Gruulg. Bang! The shepherd's staff slammed against his swollen back, and the disruption field hissed as it tore apart the tattered armor plates. Dreamwalker, arms sank, and the shepherd's staff seemed to sink into the mud, disappearing into the barrel-shaped body. The disruption field suddenly went out. Gruulg swallowed the staff and chuckled as he burped. You have no chance of winning, you will die in disease and suffering. You and this ship will become painful sacrifices. Dreamwalker gripped his staff tightly and slammed it on. Call. His arms suddenly went limp, and he was unable to loosen his grip on the shepherd's staff. He stumbled backward, his lungs burning. Gruulg turned around, and the plague dagger pierced through the Pluto-type Terminator armor. The plague dagger stopped, as if it had struck an invisible barrier, emitting a harsh scraping sound. Dreamwalker's body quickly became ethereal and disappeared from the spot. The plague dagger missed its mark. Your tricks won't work. His bloodshot, viscous eyes looked at the nearest Death Guard. We will become immortal, eternally immortal. Nurgle Prince Devil approached his honor guard members, who ran towards the plague dagger. Click. Death Guard's body swelled like an inflating balloon, and in an instant, his pale body burst through the cataphractii Terminator armor. Dreamwalker fell from Death Guard's body as if filled with lead, his forehead burning hot, his heavy breathing like a bellows. His consciousness was hazy and drifting. Open black lens bracket swelling, supernatural plague, the Nurgle plague warrior mentioned in the materials distributed by the Father, close black lens bracket. Why did it take me so long to think of this? Nerves, toxins, a pair of arms wrapped around him. I told you, you would become a physical sacrifice. Gruulg raised the plague dagger and plunged it into Dreamwalker's body. Death Guard slammed the corpse to the ground, facing the gleaming dagger. Gruulg chuckled, revealing a mouthful of money-grubbing teeth, foam spilling from the corner of his mouth. He felt a wave of disgust coming from behind him, and turned around with a grumble. One after another, golden, illusory flames surged forth relentlessly. Gruulg roared and howled, his scythe swinging like a windmill. Bang bang bang. Golden fireworks were splattered and scattered, and the rusty blades hissed. Bloodshot eyes stared at Black Armor Warrior, Rozicki Czech, the Forge Master of Order Shadow. Rozicki stared at the swollen monster and asked uncertainly. Ignatius Grurger. Of course it's me, Grurg chuckled. In the past, my gene father abhorred witchcraft, and I couldn't understand it. Now I'm beginning to understand that those golden spells are abhorrent, just like Nimrod's golden wings. Monster. A blinding bolt of lightning ripped through the air and struck the swollen body. The tattered armor hanging on Gruulg's body exploded into countless fragments, and a puddle of pus gushed from his swollen, pale body. The storm of white scars swept across the ground, revealing bodies clad in white armor, their corpses bloated and stinking from being soaked, swarming with flies. Some people staggered to their feet and joined the ranks of the fallen. Attack them, purify them. 3 white Saturnine-patterned Terminators strode out, their bodies radiating brilliant light. The boiling plasma meandered along an impossible trajectory, striking precisely at the disfigured, pale heads. Boom boom boom. The head exploded to ashes, and the swollen body crashed onto the deck, oozing foul-smelling pus. The beam of destruction swept across the deck like a plowshare, burning away the filth and stains to ashes. Psyker, Department of Science Miguel Cuesta raises the heart-forged staff, and the downward falling plasma jet is tinged with a deep blue. The beams of light bent strangely in the air, and all 3 beams struck Gruulg simultaneously. Nicator's eyes widened. Even the most powerful prophetic psyker could only guide the beam of light to bend within a limited range to hit the target, it was impossible for it to change direction so drastically. Miguel was able to control the raging plasma jet with a mere wave of his hand. He stared at the detestable filth. His bloated body evaporated in large swaths, his right arm evaporated, and his chest was empty, revealing charred maggots. Gruulg's bloodshot eyes bulged, and with a flick of his wrist, the plague dagger flew out. Milger raised his hand, aiming at the rusty dagger. Call. The plague dagger paused for a moment, then accelerated its flight. Bang. With a short, sharp crack, the plague dagger pierced through the multiple shields formed by the thermal derivation field and Storm Seer. The rusty dagger pierced through the white Saturnine pattern Terminator armor and entered Storm Seer's body. Boom! The Saturnine pattern Terminator crashed down. Verger swung his scythe and charged toward Miguel. Astronomer, Rosicky infused all his spirituality into the golden wings engraved on the armor. It was a mystical item formed from the golden wings of a priest's staff after the death of a priest of light. Rosicky's eyes shone with two miniature suns as she stared intently at Gruel. He leaned back, his arms outstretched, as if embracing the sun. A magnificent and pure beam of intense light descended from the sky, enveloping the mangled and swollen body. No, no, no. Clumps of filthy flesh burned to ashes, and pale, mangled bodies evaporated completely. A blinding light flashed, and Okafor, the numerologist from Thousand Suns, arrived late. Open black lens bracket. The Forge Master's combat power is surprisingly strong. Close black lens bracket. Rosicky looked at Nikidal and Okafor. What are your plans? I will return to Shigori's. Prospero. Rosicky's gaze swept over a pale gold spike on the ground, part of the Legion emblem and also part of the Black Emperor's insignia. I invite you to meet my father. He will lead us. After a 3-second silence, they both said simultaneously, okay. They looked at each other and found the same answer in each other's eyes. Lord Nimrod can set things right in a chaotic situation. Rosicky picked up spikes from the charred deck and hung them on his armor, replacing the original pale black decorations. Order Shadow with a terrifying memory. Chapter 11-12. We launch a frontal assault, leaving Order Shadow with a terrifying memory. Ghoul Stars. Tattooed Count, we have located Order Shadow's base. The executioner, Kyrendwa, approached Jando Skriwak, the commander of the 45th Company of the Night Lords. Jando was born into the Skriwak family, one of the 9 great Nostromo families, and was known as Tattooed Count because of the ceremonial black markings on his face given by his father and his noble birth. The square black lines branded on Skullwalker's face extend from his forehead to his lower eyelids, framing his entire eye sockets. Exquisite lightning bolt tattoos adorned both cheeks. He raised an eyebrow. Where? B25 area, 400 meters underground. There are also a lot of life signs inside. Judging from the vital signs readings, they should be the indigenous people of Husto. Very good. The 2 dark marks on his face gleamed. We will achieve a glorious victory. Since entering Ghoul Stars, the Night Lords have scattered into countless warbands. They disregarded Warmaster's orders and only wanted to establish their own kingdom. However, most ambitious lords suffered heavy losses, or even death, in the process of building their world of corpses. The vast forces of Order Shadow were scattered across the many worlds they passed through. Each important world is garrisoned by more than 1,000 Order Shadows, relying on fortifications that make them impossible to conquer in a short time. Subsequently, a massive support fleet will arrive. Skullwalk scoffed at their reckless choice, arguing that they lack the wisdom to survive in harsh environments. His biological father sent him and his brothers to Underhive, leaving them to be hunted down by the Hive City gangs. Most of his brothers were dead, and he made his first kill when he was 10 years old. He was a top henchman of the Hive City gang, but his intestines were spilling out of his abdomen. It was the weakest moment of the villain. The next day, he received 2 black marks and was called the strongest of all his sons by his father. The same is true now. Husto is a worthless planet with only a few million native inhabitants and no more than 100 Order Shadows stationed there. Set off immediately to hunt down the son of Nimrod. Skullwalker suppressed a laugh as he recalled the wonderful times he spent lurking in the darkness of Nostromo. When he grew tired of hunting the poor, he began hunting the children of other nobles, but he never expected to have the opportunity to experience the pleasure of killing his own kind. Skullwalker couldn't wait to lead the 45th Company to the entrance of the underground fortifications. My lord, how should we launch our attack? Kyrendeva asked. We will launch a frontal assault and leave Order Shadow with a terrifying memory. Kyrendvar's twin brother, Kerenkiel, strode up to the Claw commander and declared, I want to fight, I want to kill. Life is torture, death is peace. Before my end comes, I want everyone to pray for my mercy in their suffering. Kyrendeva placed his hand on Kerenkiel's forearm, and the latter shrugged. Are you done? Skullwalker stared at Kerenkiel. Kerenkiel roared and took a step back. Skullwalker scoffed, you guys get down to business, take the second Fierce Claw with you. 2. If you obey my orders, you will have plenty of opportunities to go on a killing spree. The Night Lords, helmet visors faded like dying embers, and life support systems shut down one by one, leaving only the most basic functions. They ventured into the darkness, using the Nostromo people's innate darkness vision to observe their surroundings. Although they are the attackers, they have now stepped into the hunters' home turf. The communication channels were completely shut down, and even Skullwalker couldn't contact any of the claws. In the darkness, victory or defeat depends entirely on the right timing and subjective initiative. Karendeva and Karenkiel walked side by side, understanding each other with a single gesture, without needing words. Karenkiel's eyes lit up, and he pounced on Order Shadow with hunting strides. Open black lens bracket 5 steps, 4 steps, close black lens bracket. He silently chanted, and as soon as he closed the distance by 1 step, his thumb would press down on the rune and then draw blood. Attack! Karendeva suddenly shouted a warning. You're more anxious than I am, Karenkiel spat. The motor roared to life, and Order Shadow turned around, grabbing the heavy hammer in his hand and bringing it down. Order Shadow has spotted me. Karendeva saw it. Karenkiel knew that his brother could sometimes glimpse glimpses of the future, which often left him in a state of melancholy that others could not understand. Chainswords flew, their serrated edges crashing against the heavy hammer with a roar. The jagged fragments exploded, and Mars flew everywhere. A shockwave emanated from the hammerhead, causing Karenkiel's arm to go numb. Boom! Karenkiel crashed to the ground. Corpse Collector swung his concussion weapon at Karenkiel. A chilling axe blade blocked Karenkiel's path, and the executioner Kyrandvar swung his executioner's axe to deflect the attack. Karenkiel roared and sprang up, the diamond-encrusted serrated edges spinning as they pierced the chest of the Mark VI Raptor-type power armor. The serrated edge tore through Order Shadow's chest, splattering blood everywhere. Karenkiel shoved the corpse hard, simultaneously lifting the hammer. This hammer is strange. Order Shadow has many unique weapons, Kyrandvar said. Karenkiel swung the hammer with his left arm. Whoosh whoosh. He is stronger than you should use your hands. Karenkiel snorted and tucked the damaged chainsword back into his waistband. Boom boom boom. The passageway vibrated, and debris flew everywhere. Karenkiel, hammer in hand, charged toward the direction of the loud noise. After walking 14 steps, he saw that the ground had collapsed at the corner of his foot, and a member of the fierce claws was buried in the ground with his body tilted to one side. His Mark IV power armor exploded, and midnight blue fragments mixed with blood and flesh splattered all over the surrounding walls. Karenkiel looked ahead and saw that the space above had collapsed, burying corpses inside. Karenkiva walked up to him. A squad of Night Lords. Not a single one was killed. One is dead. Order Shadow took his companion's body, Kyrandva said. And another is wounded. 10 for 1. They can see just as clearly as we can in the darkness tunnels, and they also have strange weapons. Karendeva crouched down, his gauntlets lightly stroking the sticky ground. A psionic spell that makes people slip. The hammer in your hand is perfect for underground combat. Skullwalker looked at Kyrandva. The entire claw has lost 96 men. What were the results? 12 Order Shadows confirmed killed. 8 for 1. Skullwalker's eyes were cold. Useless. Karenkiel, is that all you've got? We killed 5. You're such a piece of trash. Skullwalker drew his longsword. We don't have that much time to waste. Fierce claws, attack. He shoved Karenkiel aside and charged ahead into the darkness tunnel. More than 900 Night Lords followed in his footsteps. Greater than. Chapter 1113 Skullwalker is now a true tattooed count. Jendo Skrevolk, the company commander of the 45th Company of Night Lords, raised the bolt pistol and repeatedly pulled the trigger at Order Shadow. The plasma jet swept past him, and the exploding molten flow engulfed Tower Rickusfew's body. The firelight illuminated the black lines on tattooed Count's cheeks, piercing his dark eyes. Skullwalker pressed the rune, and the power sword hissed. He shifted his body to the side, dodging the hammer that was about to strike, the blade whirling as it sliced through his black armor. Skullwalker tucked the bolt pistol back into his belt, picked up Order Shadow's corpse, and leapt forward. The corpse's touch was icy cold. Skullwalker grabbed a handful. His skin was cold. Skullwalk wondered, even the native inhabitants of those icy worlds had warm bodies. Only the bodies of the dead are cold. Boom! With a loud bang, the passage behind me shook violently. Skullwalker, holding the corpse as a human shield, charged forward. An Order Shadow raised his hand, aiming at his feet. A beam of icy cold light shot out and struck the ground. Skullwalker stepped onto the thin ice and slipped. He steadied himself, and the corpse slipped from his hand and fell to the ground. Skullwalker rolled over, the plasma jet grazing past the midnight blue armor. As he rolled over, the blade spun out and struck Order Shadow's calf. Blood splattered, landing on the black square lines under Skullwalker's lower eyelid. It was cool, but not as cold as my body. Who knew Order Shadow's body would be so interesting? Skullwalker's melancholy black eyes lit up as he charged into the enemy ranks, his arms whirling and waving. Executioner Karenkiel swung his execution axe and smashed it into the chest of an Order shadow. His body split open, and his gaze passed through the surging waterfall of blood as he looked ahead. The gushing blood from the arteries stained the corridor crimson. Open black lens bracket Lord Skrevolk, you truly deserve to be Legion's foremost swordsman. Close black lens bracket. Karenkiel's vision was stained crimson. He bent down, dipped his finger in the blood, and smeared it onto his midnight blue armor. Skullwalker twisted his body, his blade slashing down behind an Order shadow. His gaze swept over Karenkiel, and he curled his lip in disdain. These scum are completely immersed in killing, becoming tools of brutality. Tools are useful too. Skullwalker drew his sword and was about to pounce on his next target when he suddenly saw an Order shadow raise his arm in front of him. A dark curtain appeared out of nowhere, obscuring his view. Rumble. Amidst the deafening explosion, the ground shook violently. Skullwalker leapt backward. As the smoke cleared, the passageway collapsed. They've retreated, Karendeva said, coming to his side. Spread out and search in units of fierce claws, Skullwalker ordered. 2 hours later, Skullwalker's gaze swept over everyone in front of him. Not a single trace was found. The Order Shadow's hideout must be deep underground, just like there's no door leading there at all, Karendeva said. He looked at the librarian Berenin, whose shoulder armor was engraved with a horned skull pattern, and said, I believe there's always a way out. Berenin, what lies ahead? Berenin slowly raised his head, as if carrying a heavy burden. Imperium's disturbances have put a lot of pressure on me. I only saw a few afterimages. My lord, I cannot. Berenin lowered his head and smiled darkly, the sound in his throat like that of a feline, a mixture of pain and pleasure. Skullwalker had fought all sorts of aliens, but this laugh was unlike any other. Jando Skreewalker, if you want to defeat Order Shadow, I have a suggestion for you. Berenin raised his head, a strange smile on his face. Skullwalk stared at his blank expression, his face a sickly gray. A stream of saliva spilled from his twitching lips, and his eyes turned red, gleaming with a golden light. His lip movements didn't match his words, it was as if his voice came from another world. Skullwalker pointed his gun at the strange creature in front of him. You are not Berenin. Many Night Lords are plagued by ominous dreams, and from the moment they joined the Legion, visions of a gloomy future have tormented them all from time to time. This is not only a relic of their suffering lives, but also a gift from their cursed Primarch. Berenin is a real psyker, and the situation is even more serious. But he is clearly not on that list now. A long, pink tongue licks its teeth. As the tongue moves, it sometimes reveals smooth, grayish-white teeth, and sometimes it is sharp and translucent, like that of an aquatic predator. You are very perceptive. I borrowed his body. He is tenacious and stubborn, but the barriers between worlds are easily broken. Lorgar's devastating storm paved the way for us, and our worlds are now intersecting and merging. Tattooed Count, his face pale and proud, said, You won't make me submit. You think too highly of yourself. A long hissing sound came from Berenin's body. But everyone will kneel before the great power of war. Mortal beings are as insignificant as ants before the power of chaos. This body has very little energy left. If you continue to resist me, you will get nothing. I only help those who are useful. Skullwalker felt mental anguish from what was inside the librarian, and a terrible pressure crept up the back of his head. His eyes were filled with starlight. You're the one begging me. You have ambition to achieve your goals, and you have a cynical arrogance. I like you more and more. He licked his teeth with his long, thin tongue. We share the same desire, to defeat Order Shadow, and you will rise to fame in the repeatedly defeated Night Lords. I will please the Chaos Power. Skullwalker, you need my help to traverse a series of unconnected passages. Only I can open the great door for you. Skullwalker stared intently at Devil, a brilliant idea forming in his mind. I agree, let's begin. A wise choice. Force staff were raised high, unleashing a series of blinding lights that enveloped Night Lords. The stench filled their nostrils, and their stomachs churned. Skullwalker suppressed the urge to gag, and heard a hissing sound in his ears. Arrive. Skullwalker opened his eyes and looked around. A creature with a bird's beak spread its right wing and took flight with a whoosh. He spun around, unleashing a hail of spiked bullets. The overwhelming spikes slammed into the Mark IV power armor without making a sound, instantly turning a Night Lord into a bloody mess. Another beast-like alien raised its logging gun and swept it towards Night Lords. With a piercing tearing sound, the bullet, which would have been deflected, ripped through the terrazzo deck. Karenkiel roared and charged at the beast. The heavy hammer slammed into the ground. Boom! The rubble shot into the sky and struck the ghost. With a piercing howl, the shockwave tore the beast ghost apart. Kerenkiel withdrew his giant hammer and was about to attack Order Shadow when the shouts of the Lee brothers, Kerendeva, suddenly rang out. Careful! The blade plunged into Kerenkiel's head. No! This is impossible! Kerendeva roared. He had seen the future, he would personally kill the Lee brothers. He was constantly troubled by a bleak future, but he never expected that his brother would die at the hands of Order Shadow. The winged ghost flapped its wings as if to take flight, but the whistling blades slashed at its body. The lieutenant, spirit medium, looked at Night Lords, whose face was branded with 2 square black lines, and behind him were hundreds of enemies. Unfortunately, I can only barely control the company commander's 2 ghosts. With only the remaining 9 warriors, I cannot defeat the enemy. I hope the Lord can arrive in time. Spirit medium raised the I-Tower Con-type plasma gun, his gaze rapidly rising to look down at the enemy from a higher angle, before shooting a blazing beam of light at the branded black face. He can't die. A roar echoed from within Berenen's body. He suddenly raised his arm, and a bolt of lightning hissed out, striking Order Shadow. Devil walked towards Skullwalker. Tattooed Count covered his face as blood splattered everywhere. His face was charred black. Devil hissed and laughed. Skullwalker is now a true Tattooed Count. Kill them all. Skullwalker roared. Greater than. Chapter 11:14. The first offspring to advance to Sequence 4. With his face blackened by charring, Jendal Skriwalk, the company commander of the 45th Company of the Night Lords, arrived at the pit. The executioner, Kyrendwa, approached Order Shadow, who was tied to a pillar, and brandished the skinning knife of the Lee brothers, Kyrenkiel. Slightly cool blood splattered on his face. One after another. Blood stained Kerendeva's pale face. Did you see what happened to them? A hissing sound echoed from Librarian Berenen's body. He turned his head and looked toward the 9 o'clock position, his red eyes gleaming with gold. Night Lords lifted the mortal, the skinning knife fell, and the whole, fresh human skin hung on the midnight blue armor. His pink tongue licked his teeth, and a string of saliva dripped down. His grayish-white teeth instantly transformed into sharp, translucent points, slicing across Order Shadow's glossy skin. Tell me, what is your secret? He raised his fingers, his nails pierced the skin, and blood dripped down. Order Shadow's spine emitted golden light, and his red eyes narrowed slightly. Tell me. Skullwalker stroked the combat knife at his waist. It was like a hazy veil, half real and half illusory. Tick-tock, tick-tock. The blood pooled together and flowed into a river. A buzzing sound rang out, and he pressed his finger on the communicator. Captain Horentex of the Brown Robe Prince switched to the communication channel. Tattooed Count, a large-scale fleet has jumped to the real world. Auspex Divination has identified the Dragonbone rune as Gloriana-class battleship, Death Wither. Open black lens bracket. How could it be so fast? Close black lens bracket. Skullwalker pondered for a moment, then immediately issued the order. Retreat. His goal has been achieved. Once the news of defeating Order Shadow is spread, the Night Lords who have been scattered and lost their powerful leader will gather under his command. Before boarding the deck, Skullwalk checked the information through his tactical eyepiece. Open black lens bracket. 409 men killed, 587 men remaining in the company, close black lens bracket. Open black lens bracket. 50 Order Shadow, close black lens bracket. Skullwalker touched the combat knife at his waist. It was as cold as Order Shadow's corpse. Before Stormbird had even come to a complete stop on the flight deck of the Brown Prince, he had already leapt out of Stormbird. Skullwalker strode to the bridge and stood before Helendex. Tattooed Count. Horentex bowed. I analyzed the Order Shadow's fleet deployment. They have blocked all routes to the 2 nearest Mandeville points and neighboring star systems. Skullwalker turned to look at the librarian Berenen, who had come to his side, and spoke to the devil inside him. Take us away, otherwise we can't continue to cooperate. The pink tongue hissed out, of course, Jando Skriwalk, your performance matches your ambition. 17. He raised his sharp finger and tapped the screen. There's nothing there except a cloud of dust, Horentex said. Mortals, of course you can't see it. Hollandex looked at Lord Berenen. Skullwalker had always been very tolerant of librarians, but today he had crossed the line. You must pay a price to open that door. Skullwalker looked at Devil warily. What's the price? Blood and betrayal. Horentex stared at the hologram as 1 frigate and 2 destroyer were sacrificed under the cold orders of the Tattooed Count. 3 plumes of fireworks rose, illuminating a blood-soaked door in the real world as if in a religious ritual. Horentex looked at the large door. They looked like they were crawling into the mouth of howling hounds. A chill ran down his spine. He took a deep breath, turned on the monitor, and watched the helmsman's every move. Devil, come with me, Skullwalker said. The red eyes stared askew at the charred face. That's right, it's time. 97. Skullwalker led him to the captain's quarters, drawing a cold combat knife from his waist. This knife comes from Order Shadow's commander, perhaps the answer you're looking for is inside. Red eyes stared at the hazy combat blade as the body slid forward. He extended his claws. Skullwalker stepped forward and presented the knife to the claw. He leapt forward, and his combat knife plunged into Devil's chest. A foul-smelling wind suddenly arose, and thick blood dripped down. A round object slowly emerged. That was the hilt of a sword. A sword, about 1.5 meters long, appears, with a broad tip at the end. Skullwalker stared at the grip wrapped in black leather, the brass fittings hanging from it, and the dark blade. The road has been opened. Devil's voice echoed. The thick blood plasma shrank rapidly, as if absorbed by the sword. Skullwalker walked to the sword, his hand nearing the hilt. An urgent whisper echoed in his mind, his head throbbed with pain, and a chill ran up his spine. Skullwalker jerked his hand back. I will never, ever use yours. You will. You cannot defeat Order Shadow without me. Buzzing. Skullwalker turned on the communicator, and Hollindex's voice came through. Tattooed Count, we have successfully escaped Order Shadow and entered warp. What is our destination? Weston, Skullwalker said. You are as wise as ever, and we can continue to maintain our mobility. The surface of Husto. In Chapter 4, Lord Adams instructed the Traveler, beside him, take me to the base. Traveler grabbed Adams' right arm, and the two of them rapidly became ethereal. The color blocks in Adams' field of vision became darker, and the colors were clearly layered. The color blocks instantly turned into a rich blood red. Adams stared at the river of blood before him, the stench of decay filling his nostrils. He strode forward, walking across the blood-stained path paved with severed limbs. I will pray to my lord immediately. The traveler looked at Death Lord with envy. The Black Emperor would not answer every believer's prayer, but Death Lord would always receive his response. Adams used his combat knife to lay down the Euclidean sigil, and then clasped his hands together in an upside-down grip. Order Shadow's Black Emperor. The black mist churned and engulfed Adams. My lord, the Night Lords have split into countless warbands. Although they have lost their numerical advantage, they continue to harass our supply lines in small groups. To resolve this threat, I have dispatched adjutants with 50 men each to be stationed in isolated underground bases in 50 secondary worlds to harass and draw the enemy away. After the Night Lords launch their attack, the lieutenant will immediately summon a messenger to notify the main fleet that Oliver and I are commanding. After Adams reported on his plan, he continued. The plan started off smoothly. The Night Lords launched attacks on 47 worlds, and I successfully ambushed 46 fleets, annihilating 18,000 people. But in Justoto, the cunning tattooed count. After listening to Adams' report, Nimrod had a sudden inspiration. Jokero in the first level of space, using materials such as the door of the underworld, began to concoct the death pathway. Sequence 4, the potion of undying. Although Tattooed Count is only a company commander, his abilities are no less than any member of the Nightbat Council. He recalled that Tattooed Count would even briefly command the Night Lords in the future and would be promoted to the Devil Prince of Chaos. As for their guerrilla tactics, I will launch a targeted strike immediately. Your task now is to return to Husto and hold a funeral on the riverbank, burying yourself and it together there for 60 days. As Nimrod spoke, a bottle of pale potion appeared out of thin air in his hand. The ascension ceremony for undying is the same as in Nimrod's memory, requiring the ascensionist and the potion to be buried on the banks of an underground river tainted by death. Adams was taken aback. He hadn't expected that after his setback in Husto, the Black Emperor would not only not punish him, but would also grant him power. He will be the first person to be promoted to Marquis of Royal Court. His icy voice was tinged with intense heat. Thank you for your gift. Adams was the first offspring to advance to Sequence 4. 19. Greater than. Chapter 11:15 Lord Nimrod's style. Strike at the enemy's weak points. Triple system. Shadow of Sovereignty, Primarch office. Nimrod looked toward the doorway and spoke in a deep voice to the 7 exiled orphans dressed in different colored armor and 2 librarians who had just escaped from the Maelstrom. Come in. With the help of the Hazen Chamber of Commerce, the Jupiter trading dynasty now under Nimrod's control, Kyan secretly left the port of Terra and traveled through Necromunda's teleportation. After passing through the door and arriving at the Kalayam Gate, I was then transferred to the triple system. The 7 people entered and all looked at the imposing figure on the throne. The former chief librarian, Phil Zarost, of the Night Lords once stood beside Lord Nimrod and Nikaya. Lord Nimrod looked even more majestic than he did then. Looking directly at him, it was as if I were seeing the Emperor himself. Lord Nimrod, we are willing to serve you. World Eaters Tagore, who tore apart the Imperial Guard with his bare hands, and his twin brothers Asuba and Suba knelt down, revealing nails embedded in their scalps. One of the original 7, Dusk Raiders, Gisser, the Emperor's appointed standard-bearer, was the tallest of the Astartes. Lord Nimrod led us to defeat the rebels. He learned of the Empire's situation while on his journey. Warmaster betrayed the Empire, his Gene father Mortarion also betrayed the Warmaster. Only Lord Nimrod could quell the rebellion. Of course, Nimrod rose from his throne and helped the 3 World Eaters to their feet. You will serve as members of my guard. Argentus, the Vespasian commander, has suffered heavy losses in the wars against Mars and the Triple System. He needs your help. Argentus Callan looked toward the commander, the lord of the Emperor's children. Vespasian was the only person in the entire legion to have ever defeated him in a shooting contest. Atharva, Okafor, Hather needs your assistance. The numerologist Okafor looked toward Chief Librarian, Magister Templi of the Pyre cult. Caliphus, Corvidae cult. Temple lecturer. Open black lens bracket. After the destruction of Prospero, only Lord Nimrod had so many thousand sons serving him. Close black lens bracket. Atharva, a temple lecturer at the Sky Owl School, glanced at Blood Raven. Lord Nimrod, Kyan told me that you would help me uncover the secret in Astropath's mind. Do you know why Magnus failed? Nimrod looked towards the palace. Once you step into a territory that you cannot control, you will suffer unbearable consequences. If you want to try, I can help you, but not now. Atharva stared into the deep obsidian eyes as if he were looking into a black hole that could devour everything. A chill ran down his spine. My lord, when is the right time? When you are strong enough, I will teach you, Nimrod said. After a few seconds of thought, Atharva said, I understand. 6. Nimrod smiled and nodded, then looked at Stormseer. Nikital, Tagan needs your assistance. Nikital looked at Tagan Khan, whose adoration of Lord Nimrod was well known in The White Scars. He indeed followed Lord Nimrod in battle. That's fine, since returning to Shigoris is impossible, this is the best option at present. Yes, sir. Nimrod walked between the 2 originally intended future mentors of the Grey Knights, Fel, and Severian of the Sons of Horus. Geese, Severian, Fel, I invite you to join the War Council. Severian looked at the others in the office. Before Lord Vulcan's return, apart from Cassian Vaughn, the Legion commander of the 18th Legion, and Ulrich Brandon, the Iron Hands, 65th Company commander, casting suspicious glances at him, everyone else, including the loyalist Astartes, actually tacitly accepted Lord Nimrod's arrangements. They had gathered around Lord Nimrod, completely trusting his decisions. This is highly unusual in an era of collapsing trust. Open black lens bracket. My father once said that Lord Nimrod possessed exceptional charisma, comparable only to Lord Sanguinius, and it was indeed true. Close black lens bracket. Severian, along with Fel and Gisser, bowed and said, thank you for your trust, sir. Nimrod returned to his throne and gestured to Arsena Dun. Let's begin. Primarch's attendant raises its staff, projecting a dazzling star map. The Night Lords dispersed into smaller groups, scattered across the vast cosmos of ghoul stars. The ambitious individuals each have their own goals, and they all attempt to build their own world of rotting corpses. They avoided all conventional engagements, attacked bases, cut off supply lines, and slowed our advance. Nimrod raised his hand and circled an area in ghoul stars. With a wave of his hand, the selected area rapidly zoomed in. The Aegis sector, Zo-Sahar, a member of the Night Bat Council of the Night Lords, began. Cassidy Nuon, having completely erased the Night Lord's insignia and painted the Order Shadow insignia on his chest, began to introduce himself to the others. The Aegis sector is the granary of the eastern frontier of the Empire. The abundant produce of the agricultural world feeds the entire ghoul stars and the surrounding space. That's right, but it's the key to strategically thwarting the Night Lords, guerrilla warfare. As Nimrod spoke, he raised his hand and selected a world. Weston. Fel continued thoughtfully, it's an inconspicuous transit point located on the long but unstable Warp Pass, a route from Ultramar to the eastern frontier. A loose colony of space stations established around the orbit of a gas giant planet, extracting resources and refining fuel through a massive orbital refinery on the surface of the atmosphere. Nimrod nodded slightly. He remembered that the Night Lords had always maintained a maneuver advantage over the powerful fleet of the Dark Angels by using fuel produced in Weston. It wasn't until the Relic-class battleship arrived that the Dark Angels were able to offset the Night Lords' mobility advantage with their range advantage, and the unfavorable situation was reversed. Afterwards, the Night Lords' guerrilla warfare continued to mire Lion L. Johnson. If Conrad Kurz hadn't grown tired of the situation and invited Ryan to a meeting, the Thramas expedition would have remained indefinitely postponed. Although the Order Shadow has a greater advantage in communication and mobility than the Dark Angels. To secure a strategic victory, in addition to eliminating Conrad Kurz, it is necessary to capture the entire Aegis sector where Weston is located. Command Chapter 10 to attack Weston. The mission of Chapter 11 is the twin worlds of Manlock and Helder in the Shield sector. Severian recalls reading the biography, The Shadow King. Open black lens bracket Lord Nimrod's style, striking at the enemy's vitals, close black lens bracket. Weston, Shield sector. The Brown Prince warped out of the real world. Commander Jando Skrevolk of the 45th Company of Night Lords issued the order, broadcast to all space stations. With the arrival of the Tattooed Count, they must surrender to me immediately. Replenish my fleet with warships and fuel, and provide slaves. Greater than. Chapter 11:16 I was originally Order Shadow, how could I have betrayed you? Weston Orbit. The Brown Robe Prince. Captain Hollandex arrived before the throne of Jando Skrevolk, commander of the 45th Company of the Night Lords. Tattooed Count, I have compiled the replies. The 1st, 3rd, 159 space stations have accepted your request, and Lord Kerenkiel has set out to receive them. The 2nd, 4th, 138 space stations are willing to supply you with fuel, but not with people. Skullwalker's pale fingers traced his chin, his nails gleaming a deep black. They thought they could just stand by and watch, they thought I was giving them a choice. They only received fear, and they will be punished. Horantex felt a chill run down his spine as he gazed at the figure on the throne. He always felt that the words came from two people, not one. Yes, sir. Tattooed Count. He lowered his head, pressed the communication bead, and listened to the report. Skullwalker frowned. Order Shadow. It's Alpha. Skullwalker's eyebrows relaxed. He knew Omegan had appeared and spoken with the Lord of the Night. There is some cooperation among the legions, but he is not a member of the Nightbat Council and is unaware of the details. Connected. Communication connection established. Tattooed Count, a deep voice replied. Who is speaking? Omegan. Skullwalker chuckled. Should I call you sir? You all call yourselves Omegans, how many of you have died recently? I am Omegan, the deep voice emphasized again. You should focus more on your goals than on who you are. You only have one warship right now. If you want to build your world of rotting corpses, you need our help. Help. Skullwalker chuckled. Nostromo has a saying. No dog will bring you food unless it wants to kill you while you're eating. A piercing alarm sounded. Tattooed Count, the fleet of Order Shadow. Skullwalker sprang from his throne and went to the holographic strategy table. He stared at the ever-growing number of black warships. Omegan, weren't you going to offer me help? Your chance has come. He hung up the call. Descend to low orbit. Gas giants are permeated with flammable gases, especially concentrated gases extracted from orbital refineries. If Order Shadow were to bombard this place, it would trigger catastrophic consequences, and the entire world would be destroyed. If it were another black-painted fleet, the Dark Angels, he would not hesitate to use an extermination strategy against them, but not Order Shadow. Nimrod and his descendants always possessed an inexplicable confidence that their endless stream of methods would enable them to achieve their goals at a relatively low cost. Skullwalker thought of Husto's eerie ghost. They had indeed done a good job. After Order Shadow and Alpha begin their battle, look for an opportunity to retreat. Pick up that sword. A hissing sound suddenly rang out. It's your only chance. I will never use it. Skullwalker's arm cramped uncomfortably. Horrence looked at Tattooed Count with a puzzled expression. Skullwalker waved his hand, and the captain, with a puzzled look, carried out the Tattooed Count order. You have no choice. Our contract has been made. Even if you kill the host, you cannot break the bond between us. The chilling voice echoed in Skullwalker's mind, and he forced himself to look away and focus on the current situation. Order Shadow spun off a fleet consisting of 52 warships of various classes and charged toward the Alpha fleet, which had deployed its battle formation. He glanced at the Auspex divination report. The warship at the center of the fleet was over 18 kilometers long, at least 3 kilometers larger than any known battle mothership. Open black lens bracket Blood of War, close black lens bracket. The name of the warship instantly flashed through Skullwalker's mind. It was converted from the wreckage of Abomination Exemplar, one of the 3 Gloriana-class battleships of the Dark Angels. The Blood of War fired a dazzling beam of light, striking Alpha's warship. A burst of intense flames erupted from Alpha's ship. Skullwalker glanced at the report. Open black lens bracket explosion in the Maxence's plasma engine room, power outage, close black lens bracket. The Maxence, positioned in the center of the fleet, served as a natural void obstacle, preventing the Alpha ships from broadside deployment and unleashing macro cannon fire. Semenio suppressed the urge to vomit and looked ahead. Librarian Melon had recovered from the discomfort of teleportation and strode forward. He immediately followed the librarian's footsteps. Sir, I served on this ship before I was selected by Omegan to carry out infiltration missions. I know where Omegan is. The captain's quarters on the Maxence were modeled after Alpha's anonymous company commander's quarters. He is not a real Omegan, but he often swaps identities with Omegans. Melon nodded. Lead the way. Semenio strode forward, Melon gripping the force staff tightly, leading the team behind him. Semenio continued forward until he arrived at a gravity elevator. Semenio, the guarding Alpha exclaimed in surprise. Semenio raised the Nemesis-type bolter and pulled the trigger. A barrage of bullets swept away the comrades in arms who fought side by side when they were infiltrating Alpha. He is the son of the Black Emperor and must demonstrate his devout faith in the true God through his actions. Specially made ammunition pierced through the armor of his former brother, Alpha, causing blood and flesh to splatter everywhere. Melon stared at Semenio without hesitation and nodded almost imperceptibly. Semenio pulled a pen-shaped device from the guard captain. The elevator key will be generated based on the date. Although we don't know who created it, we can generate a key simply by entering the corresponding date. As he spoke, he flicked the 3-digit code wheel containing letters and numbers. Click. The 4 letters and 5 numbers are alternately generated. 2B3F49PY5. Semenio raised his hand and typed a series of symbols on the keyboard. The red and green lights flashed rapidly before finally settling on green. Amidst the pervasive cold mist, the gravity elevator, the grand door, roared to life. This leads directly to the anonymous company commander's cabin. Thump. With a breaking sound, cold mist filled the air, and the large door opened. Semenio leapt out of the main door first, colliding head-on with Warrior, who emerged from the side door through a regular metal door. He was slightly taller than any of the 10th chapter Astartes, and held a powered spear in his hand. Semenio. Omegan, exclaimed. Semenio was personally selected and recommended to Alpharius. After the raid on Order Shadow failed, the father pointed out in a meeting room that Semenio and other infiltrators may have betrayed Legion. He couldn't believe that the loyal Semenio would betray him and Legion, so he decided to investigate. You've really betrayed us. I was originally Order Shadow, so how could I have betrayed you? As Semenio spoke, he unleashed a barrage of bullets at Omegan. Boom boom boom. Mars, the armor of the Pluto-type Terminator, splattered everywhere, and Omegan's eyes were cold and menacing. He wanted to execute the traitor himself. The lance hissed as it thrust straight at Semenio. Boom. The musket struck the invisible ground, creating ripples. Psyker Melon held his staff high, and the jag set, engraved with Grimner Sage's rune circuits, was covered in frost. Scrolls Professor, Melon reached to his waist with his left hand, pulled out a gray-black scroll, and shouted in the Dun language, freeze. Streams of crystal-clear light fell from the sky, freezing the Pluto-type Terminator inside. Boom. The ice shattered, and Omegan's armor was covered in a layer of frost. A streak of silvery lightning crashed down. The armor was charred black, and the helmet shattered with a bang. Ah! A sudden gust of wind arose, and Omegan spun and crashed onto the dome. He swung his right fist and slammed it onto the deck. Boom! Omegan used the recoil to fall, then thrust his spear forward with lightning speed. Flames appeared out of nowhere and slammed onto Omegan's head. Thick, black smoke rose again. The body of Omegan crashed to the ground. Semenio stared at the corpse before him, then bent down and picked up the power spear. Chapter 11:17 Kill Ramsey, and you will become the successor of the Lord of the Night. The bridge of the 10th chapter flagship, the Relic-class battleship, the Stinger rose. Chapter Master Ramsey stared at the holographic image. His fleet had already surrounded Alpha and gained the upper hand. His eyes shifted, landing on the gas giant Weston. The Brown Prince remained inactive, like a feline lurking in the darkness, hunting its prey. Open black lens bracket tattooed count. Adams's plan in Husto did not succeed. Close black lens bracket. Immediate action is required. Ramsey opened the sound map channel. Traveler. Target. Prince of the Brown Robes, prepare for teleportation. Yes, my lord. After Star-Lord reformed the Imperial teleportation, the teleportation decks of the flagships of all chapter lords and some company commanders have been renovated and are now under the responsibility of a traveler. Sasebo Tezuka, assemble the honor guard, follow me. Sasebo Te gazed at the lord's face. His marble-like features now bore obvious flaws compared to the past. His nose was pulled into a hook shape, and his lips were bright red. As the undisputed number 1 in the field of biochemistry below Primarch, this shouldn't have appeared on the lord's face. The Sasebo family knew that the lord had deliberately made changes to his appearance to avoid mentioning the Black Emperor. This significant change occurred after the Black Emperor's faith was openly spread within the Legion. Sasebo Tezuka bowed and replied, "Yes, sir." He and the honor guard followed Lord Ramsay all the way to the teleportation deck. Looking around the Sazeboat family estate, the adamantite pillars have been replaced by psychic crystals, and the Adeptus Mechanicus maintenance personnel have been replaced by Royal Court monk. "My lord, everything is ready." Ramsay nodded. "Let's begin immediately." Sasebo Tezuka stood in the center of the platform, and a blinding light suddenly shot up. From the Sasebo family's perspective, everything was dyed even more vibrantly. Streaks of flame flashed past swiftly, like a sticky pink tongue sweeping across my face. "Order Shadow, you will die at the hands of tattooed Count, you will die by his sword," the whispers echoed in my ears, hissing. The Lima third layer state of mind. The Sasebo family and other honor guard members immediately obeyed their lord's orders, erecting a shield of wool to block out the whispers. As the light faded, Sasebo looked around and found that none of the Order Shadow bodies had been severed by the deck or transmitted to the cogitator. Under normal circumstances, the Empire's over 30,000 kilometer teleportation technology would cause at least 4 accidental deaths. His body didn't feel torn apart or reassembled. There wasn't even a metallic taste in my throat. If it weren't for the devil who had his sights on them, this dangerous journey would have been a smooth one. "My lord, he's not in now." Close black lens bracket. As Sasebote pondered, he looked toward the command throne. The midnight blue body with black markings on its face was frozen in the moment it stood up. He seemed to freeze as soon as his buttocks left the seat. Jando Skriwak, the company commander of the 45th Company of Night Lords, bit his lip, and blood dripped down his face. He mustered all his strength to try to stand up straight, but his body remained motionless, as if it were wrapped in a ball of silk threads. He felt no one approaching, not even now. Skullwalker looked at the executioner, Kyrendwa, who drew his giant axe and charged at him. Open black lens bracket. Karendvar's brain is much better than his stupid, bloodthirsty brothers, he knew to help me escape first. Close black lens bracket. Ah! A cold wind suddenly blew up. A bronze door appeared out of thin air, and a giant skeletal serpent snaked out. 4 beams of deep light shone on Karendeva. A pair of wings slowly opened, then suddenly flapped. Karendeva's boots dragged on the steps, leaving 2 marks. Skullwalker felt a chilling hurricane blasting through his armor and striking his body. The giant skeletal serpent opened its large mouth on the right side of its head, lunging at Karendeva. The executioner swung the axe that had just slaughtered tens of thousands of mortals, and slashed at the giant skeletal serpent. Bang! The white skeletal serpent's left head slammed into Kyrendva, and its midnight blue body spun and flew up. Another giant mouth opened and bit down on Karendeva's body. Blue armor plates splattered at midnight, and severed corpses fell to the ground. Boom boom boom. With a deafening roar, honor guard's barrage rained down on the giant skeletal serpent. Looking down, Skullwalker saw some of the diamond warheads seemingly hitting the barrier, creating ripples. Another part of the bolt seemed to be stuck in the quagmire, becoming increasingly sluggish the further it moved forward. Open black lens bracket useless, close black lens bracket. Skullwalker roared inwardly. Dozens of Night Lords had failed to break through the barrier of a single feathered serpent. That's ridiculous. There's no hope. A scream suddenly entered my mind. Only I can help you. Your time is running out, I won't be able to hold him back any longer. Skullwalker felt a chill run down his spine, he felt as if a dagger was being thrust at him. I agree, Skullwalker roared in his mind. Go and get the blade immediately. Kill Ramsay, and you will become the successor of the Lord of the Night. Black flames shot up from the seat of the command throne and crashed into Skullwalker. Skullwalker spun out and crashed to the ground with a thud. He used his arm strength to get up from the ground. Having regained control of his body, Skullwalker roared. He glanced back, and the billowing flames tore through the thick shadows. A black armor warrior appeared out of thin air. He had a face like a marble statue, with radiant skin. Skullwalker's eyes narrowed. Ramsay. He strode forward and rushed toward the cabin. A strong wind whistled past. Skullwalker sensed that Ramsay was following him like a shadow. He didn't look back, he just ran as fast as he could. He let the pillars of fire rise behind him. Boom! Skullwalker shoved aside the big door, rolled to the ground, and grabbed the black leather handle. Call! Skullwalker's 2 hearts pumped powerfully, and a feeling even more exhilarating than an injection of combat stimulants swept through his body. His dark eyes turned bloodshot, and as he turned, the outline of a figure gradually emerged from the thick shadows. The dark blade spun, aiming for Ramsay. Once he manages to kill Ramsay, he will undoubtedly become the most dazzling warlord. He will join the Nightbat Council and even challenge Diego Sevitar. A blinding golden light suddenly rose up, rapidly outlining a golden seal that struck Ramsay. A sacred light descended from the sky, its bright and warm rays striking Skullwalker. Bang! A hazy combat knife fell to the ground. The broadsword tip trembled, and the meter-and-a-half long blade emitted a continuous roar. A pink mist rose up and enveloped Skullwalker. Shepherd, Ramsay gazed at the deck and picked up the gleaming combat knife. Open black lens bracket. If I were hurting, priest of light, instead of notary, the devil within the blade wouldn't be able to escape with tattooed count. Close black lens bracket. Boom! Skullwalker slammed to the ground. He hurled the blade at the blade. Damn it, didn't you tell me you'd help me kill Ramsay? I have nothing now. I don't have a single subordinate, not even a useless person. The blade rolled to Skullwalker's feet. He is stronger than expected, but you will become stronger. I will help you kill Ramsay, kill Adams. The Night Lords will praise the fear you spread, and mortals will grovel at your feet. Greater than. Chapter 11:18. The Warmaster's offspring are far weaker in combat than Lord Nimrod's. Dark Monarch, flagship strike cruiser of Chapter 11, Aegis Sector. Pel Koscielny's lips curled into a smile as he recalled the situation of the twin stars Helder and Manlock in the sector. Mentor of Disorder seemed to be deep in thought. He had found something he could use in it. The slave traders of Herder ran rampant on the eastern frontier, and in the years following the Emperor's arrival, they frequently clashed with the Thramas and Gurgurard fleets, attempting to establish their own kingdom. They allied with the chieftains of the Manlock tribe and refused to give up their dream of conquest. How ironic that the Night Lords punished the Hives, stripped the skins of the powerful to decorate the central hall of Hive City, and forced them to submit to the Emperor's will. The humiliating surrender filled them with resentment, and the long-standing humiliation drove them to join Horus's camp. He looked at the two barons of corruption before him and understood the meaning of the Black Emperor's oracle. He hoped to exploit the old grudges between Herder and Manlock and the Night Lords to make them loyal to the Black Emperor. Execute according to plan. Yes, sir. The Baron of Corruption responded in unison. The shadow-patterned Stormbird slowly descended, and, Baron of Corruption, peered at Manlock through the narrow field of vision. The information about Manlock flashed through his mind. Open black lens bracket. A world built by the Eldar, close black lens bracket. Manlock is 9 times the size of Terra, yet its seasonal changes are remarkably stable and regular. It consists of 3 identical satellites, fixed in the optimal orbital position, which keeps the local tides and winds stable. As a member of the Eldar Hunter's Order, the world he had just arrived in was consistent with the characteristics of the Maiden World. Golden corn catches the eye in the obsidian, its plump kernels swaying in the wind. The giant water wheel, like a silver arm, slowly rotates, sprinkling water mist that covers the oat fields. The shadow-patterned Stormbird came to a stop, its feet wobbling. Baron of Corruption stepped off Stormbird and looked around. The ground trembled violently as one giant harvester after another rumbled towards them. 32 Order shadows followed closely behind, lined up in neat rows. Although the shadow-patterned Stormbird can carry 50 Order shadows, the Barbarian are much larger and can only carry a limited number. 33. The massive vehicle's front end was a broad, giant scythe. Wherever it passed, swaths of grain fell. The crop enters the threshing port, is processed by the clutch, and then flows into the teleportation pipe under the vehicle body through the discharge port. The front half of the car is a box-shaped structure, and through the gaps in the window frames, the child peeks out. The rear half of the vehicle is fitted with a series of giant barns, which are connected to the teleportation pipeline. Open black lens bracket. A technologically advanced nomadic tribe engaged in agriculture, that's quite rare. This is the first one Legion has encountered. Close black lens bracket. As he pondered the Baron of Corruption, he saw a giant tracked harvester parked in front of him. The car door opened, and a figure jumped down. The tribal chieftain approached Order Shadow and said, "My lord, the Merrier clan pays homage to you. We are willing to supply Order Shadow's fleet with all agricultural products to meet your needs. We have prepared a 1,000,000-strong army and 10 years' worth of food." The obsidian eyes of Baron of Corruption stared at the man before him. "You don't want to get involved in this war. My lord, we are just mortals, and we have no place in this war. Do you know that Warmaster's messenger has arrived in Manlock? I think they can understand." Baron of Corruption smiled, his silver teeth gleaming and piercing the eyes of the Melior clan chief. Will they understand? Will those clan leaders who yearn for greater power be content with their current isolation and past humiliations? They're ready, can you still hold them off? Chief Melior's expression changed. He was about to speak when Baron of Corruption raised his hand and turned to look southeast. "They're here." Melior lay on the ground, feeling the ground tremble. He sprang to his feet, shouting, "Prepare for battle." According to Manlock tradition, no technologically advanced nomadic tribe would set foot on another tribe's nomadic farm. If this happens, it means that some ambitious person has started a war. When Melior saw Order Shadow draw its blade and leap into the air with a dazzling light, he breathed a sigh of relief. Baron of Corruption gazes ahead as hundreds of Sons of Horus, clad in gray-green armor, advance alongside giant harvester-tracked vehicles. Attack! Baron of Corruption took the lead, while Sons of Horus raised his bolter. A dense barrage of bullets roared and rained down. The Baron of Corruption exudes spirituality, its body shimmering with light, its black armor layered with dazzling prisms. The overwhelming number of diamond projectiles struck the prism, gradually dissipating as they bounced and slowed down, eventually scattering weakly on the ground. His boots sank, and oval-shaped dust swirled up, instantly flying to Sons of Horus's side. Sons of Horus thrust his sword forward, the blade hissing and spinning eerily as it grazed past the black armor. Baron of Corruption swung his arm and slammed it into Sons of Horus's chest. Sons of Horus smashed down the two gray-green bodies like cannonballs. Another Sons of Horus thrust his sword forward, but Baron of Corruption raised his hand, and a sudden increase in gravity was applied to his gray-green arm. With a downward thrust of his arm, the blade of the Baron of Corruption leapt up from his palm. The whistling blade flashed with a series of blinding sparks as it pierced the gray-green armor. Captain Briber raised bolter, unleashing a barrage of bullets that shattered Mark IV Power Armor's terracotta armor. Briber's Auto pattern bolter produced armor-piercing effects similar to Nemesis-type special ammunition. Order Shadow followed up with a volley of gunfire, the roar of bolts suppressing 3 times their number of enemies. Clan Chief Melior leapt onto his giant harvester, and Order Shadow advanced in an orderly fashion, with Warmaster's offspring falling in droves. He slammed on the gas pedal, and the giant tracked harvester roared to life, the harvester soaring high into the air. He pushed the clutch all the way to the floor, the gears spun rapidly, and grain debris rained down everywhere. Boom! The serrated blade struck the side of a brown-painted intrusion vehicle, tearing off a patch of dazzling Mars. The warrior tribe of the Melior clan, we launched a surprise attack. Frustrated voices rose, almost drowned out by the roaring rumble. Chief Melior was taken aback. He pulled the lever and slowly backed away. All the Sons of Horus on the battlefield had fallen, leaving only 19 Order Shadows standing. He recalled the 33 Order Shadows he had seen earlier. A glaring number caught my eye, 7-1. Warmaster's offspring launched an attack, but were defeated by the disadvantaged Order Shadow. The Warmaster's offspring are far weaker in combat than Lord Nimrod's. The Emperor surprisingly did not appoint Lord Nimrod as a War Master. Chief Melior quickly jumped out of the cockpit and came to Order Shadow. Baron of Corruption walked up to him and said, "No one can stand aside in a war, you are the meat that everyone is eyeing. Now, it's time for you to make a choice. The Night Lords slaughtered you, and now they serve the War Master. If you don't want to go through that again, you know what to choose." Melior gazed at the gray-green corpses scattered on the ground. "Lord Nimrod, will you protect us?" "Certainly. Greater than." For more thrilling fanfiction stories like this, check out my channel Fanfic Audiobook. Dive into epic adventures, mysterious realms, and legendary journeys brought to life through immersive storytelling. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more amazing audiobooks. Remember that the domain name of this website is the first choice for chasing Taiwanese novels Kane.com, which is super reliable.